right, now being 6 o'clock, I'll call the Monday, April 9th meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. This meeting is being recorded for cablecast and YouTube presentation by Area 58 Community Access Media. The video of this meeting is not to be considered an official public record. We've got a 6 o'clock appointment with Linda Leddy and Marty Nover and Brian, if he can make it.
Yeah, Brian's coming.
Brian's coming too. Okay, to discuss the earth removal bylaw draft. So do you want me to turn things over to you, Mark, or to
Should we
Linda?
do something else for a couple minutes until
Sure.
Brian gets here, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That'd be good.
Well, I can do an animal control officer update. And we had been talking with Halifax about the possibility of sharing their animal control officer. And she had been interested in the past, but she's no longer interested. So we're going to need to send out, to advertise the opening for an animal control officer. And it will also be an inspector of animals. So I believe we've got a job description. We can get moving with that as the time gets a little bit closer.
So the other piece we'll have to do with that, and I spoke to Liz briefly about this, is maybe checking with other towns in terms of if we had to board an animal, because we'll need that facility since we don't have it.
Well, and I don't know if there are any other towns that have part-time animal control that we might be able to reach out to too. So,
and she was going to reach out also to maybe some of the other towns and just see if there was some that wanted to part-time.
That's terrific. So it sounds like we're still kind of exploring that. But if we can't find a town that we can share them with, then we will advertise the position. Nothing really else. What can we go on? We can talk about goals for coming year. Economic development, I don't think we've got anything to talk about there. Financial management, nothing new there. Public safety, anything new happening with?
We have our first construction meeting Wednesday, and the general contractor will be there. Our owners, and I'll get this wrong, OPM. Owners, project manager will be there. Liz and I will attend just because it's the first one. Liz and I are, and hopefully meet with fire chief and police chief and Jim Mulcahy about parking when we get started.
Okay.
So that's what's going there.
All right. Grants. Haven't received any new grants. I did check to see if our housing production plan had been approved yet by the state, and it still is not on the approved list. Volunteerism. Had a lot of volunteers that came forward last week.
For the fire, yes, very good.
And you're starting to get the ball rolling with that. You contacted everybody?
Yep. Yeah, we're probably going to have a meeting. It looks like it'll probably be next Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, but week following. But I'll let you know.
Okay. Anything new on technology? That's right.
No, I haven't seen Michael.
Okay. How about the minutes? Did you get a chance to read the minutes
I did.
from 4-3?
Yeah.
I thought they looked good, except when we meet with Halifax, we're not discussing.
We're going to be up right away. She's waiting. Filling time.
Position. We're just talking about the possibility of shared services.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to scratch that on, it says, there's a meeting with Halifax in here. Let's see, there it is, right there. A meeting with.
Okay, so that's not animal control.
No, we're not discussing animal control, just
I
shared
will
services.
fix that and get it to Liz.
Okay, all right, so did you have any other changes on the minutes?
Not on the executive ones?
No, the regular session.
Oh, yeah. So some of the names should be Rick Jordan.
Right.
This we should spell out Karen Paluto.
Okay.
And on correspondence, a letter, it should be detailing operating and capital budget.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes, the regular session minutes from 4-2 as amended. So it's basically just name changes. These added names.
Mike,
Mike Rod,
Reed, let me see.
Reed,
Which one?
IT specialist, Mike Reed.
Oh, Rodriguez.
Oh, Mike Rodriguez.
I'll spell it.
You,
All right, and what's the other one? Oh, Lieutenant Governor
Karen Polito.
Karen Polito.
Right, and then there's just a small change down there.
Okay, I will get that to Bree.
Okay, so motion to accept the minutes of 4-2 open session as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, all right. Now that Brian's here, how about for the discussion, you guys can talk about the work you've been doing, and then if we've got questions from the audience, please stand up, identify yourself for the press, and then we'll try to answer the questions. All right, so Mark, did you want to?
Well, just a brief introduction. We've been working on the earth removal bylaw for several weeks now in sort of an informal subcommittee of Marty Nover, Rick Burnett, Brian Wick, Linda Letty, and Amy Cronin have been working on it. And we've had a couple of extensive sessions in the last couple of weeks to get this spiffed up. From the very beginning, we knew we were having relatively limited time and to see if we could get it done, and it's kind of been a miracle that we've gotten to the place that we've gotten, and we feel like we have a version that's pretty close to a final draft. The goal had been and remains to be, if we can, to get it to town council tomorrow, which hopefully gives them enough time to vet it and enough time to get it on this year's warrant. We knew all along that maybe we couldn't get it done and have to wait a year, but the committee's done amazing work, and just to underline, this goes back to volunteerism. A lot of people got involved in this and poured hour after hour unexpectedly into it, and we are really appreciative for the 4 people sitting here right now, and Amy Cronin, who isn't here, who just put a huge amount of time in. So I think that's enough for me. Maybe, Linda, do you want to sort of give a quick overview? Or the only other thing I'd say is we knew all along that the goals here were kind of balance the needs and of individual citizens against the needs of the town, against the needs of the Board of Selectmen, not to get overwhelmed with policy and procedure. And I think we've come up with a document that actually succeeds at all that. And we'll look forward to hearing from Linda, and absolutely look forward to hearing comment from anyone that here would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Mark. You just said you took part of my summary away, so that's really good. Perfect. But I do want to make sure people know Marty Nover is here and Rick Burnett are here in the front, and Brian and I are going to be doing presentation, and then Amy Cronin's still away, so she's not here. And we want to thank Mark for, especially the last couple of weeks, sitting in with us as we've really been sort of crunching each phrase and looking at it, and his questions, as someone who has not been quite as immersed in it, has been very helpful, so that we could sort of step back sometimes and try to make sure that we're explaining it and thinking it through very thoroughly. So, yeah, thank you to everyone. And sometimes it's better just to dive in, get it done, and you know it's done, than having it be on your to-do list, right? So I'm not recommending this all the time, but, you know. One of the reasons that we had to do this was that our earth removal law needs updating. And it needs updating because there have been changes in the state law that are relevant, particularly the Agricultural Law and the Wetlands Act, which are 2 governing acts that oversee a lot of related earth removal stuff. There have been changes over the years in best management practices for farming and just for land management in general. And, of course, the town has grown. The town is changing. So something that we drafted, I don't know, it was, I think, many years ago, for our earth removal is perfectly competent. And if you had to use it today, it's a competent tool, and you can apply measures for it. But it's better to have a tool that actually lets everyone know what's going to happen, what the standards are, and how it's going to work, so that you all know what you're trying to do. So that's what we think we've done, hopefully, in getting up to this next draft. It's addressing 3 big issues that relate to changes in state law, best management practices, and the growth of the town. The first of those relates to exempting certain operations and certain practices. And so Brian's going to talk about that.
Okay. Thank you. So I think, as I mentioned last time I was here, my expertise falls largely within the agricultural realm of earth removal. And certainly in working in many of the other towns, some of the other exemptions that have come up have certainly been something that I'm cognizant of. So we try to go through and make sure that as many of the normal practices that are going on, whether it's ag or not, are exempted, and those would continue as they should be. So those sort of things include federal, state, municipal projects, road work projects, that sort of thing. And this is all on page 6 of your document. And some of the basic things, like for normal gardening or landscaping, removing 100 cubic yards from your yard shouldn't require a permit. And then some of the other incidental things have to do with construction, Title V systems, walkways, personal driveways, building construction, that sort of thing. We exempted those under normal means, meaning you can't, if you're digging out a foundation, you should be removing just basically that foundation, a little bit around that's needed, and that's pretty much it. If you're going to go beyond that, you would need to have a permit. Let's see, agriculture is probably the one that necessitated most of the conversation. We wanted to make sure that the agricultural rights that are afforded under state law are recognized. But there is some times when some projects are pretty large, and that's when necessary oversight is helpful for the town. So we wanted to find that balance, and we struggled with the best way to come up with that. But we think we've accomplished that. 1,000 yards are excluded for all of agriculture, so put cranberry to the side. Horse farming, row crops, whatever it may be, 1,000 yards pretty much should cover most of your general agricultural activities for removal. And then when it comes to cranberry agriculture, which tends to have more of the earth removed basis on the type of agriculture that it is, all the normal maintenance and improvement practices would be exempted. Things like sanding your bogs, rebuilding a bog, moving sand from one property to another. As long as it's within the same ownership or the same family, then you don't need a permit. If you start selling that material, that crosses over, and now you're going to need to get a permit to do that. Or if it's a larger project, like you're putting in a tailwater recovery pond or any type of pond, a new cranberry bog, things of larger scale like that, that's when you need the oversight.
Brian, can I stop you for a second? I'm just going to turn the heat off. I don't know if you're having trouble hearing in the back. We are.
There we go.
All right, sorry, Brian.
So just a reminder, everyone, to speak up for some of us with old ears and particularly soft-spoken.
Sorry, yeah, I don't project well. But
that's... I saw you on TV, though.
Oh, yeah, great. There's a microphone right there, so it's easy. So that was generally it for the exemption process. Again, we wanted to make sure that normal maintenance improvement when it comes to ag are going to have the exemptions that are afforded under state law, because we wanted something that was ultimately going to be defensible to the town, so when you need to say no to a project, it's going to be defendable and it's not going to cause litigation. And if it's something that's just normal ongoing activities, they shouldn't have to come in here and get permits to do normal maintenance types activities. And that's the same with your homeowners and that sort of thing. When they're doing just, like I mentioned, a yard project or that sort of thing, you don't want to see them anyway. They shouldn't need to come in either. So that's what we try to accomplish. Questions on the exemptions, or? Okay.
Okay, the next thing that we've done is to make sure that we've provided significant protections for the residential properties in town, the environment, the water resources, and the other features that relate to the town's character and maintaining the town's rural character. So that encompasses everything from the Natural Heritage Program of the state, designating areas for both endangered species, but also for important ecosystems and water, and that have a lot of water in them. It includes our wellhead areas, our flood zones, so a lot of water things. And the open space plan that we're just finishing, and we did a survey of this residents a year and a half ago now. Protecting our water was the #1 issue for all the residents, and #2 now, for the first time after several surveys. Protecting rural character came up #2 because the water issue became so important. So with under the second features that weave through the bylaw now, there are all these particular criteria and standards that are spelled out very clearly about what pertain, if we want to do something that pertains to those goals, how will they be measured, and what needs to be done. And that gets into the third part of it, is that we needed to have a transparent way to make sure that people knew what the rules were and what the standards are, so that if they want to come in and apply, they know ahead of time, what's going to be looked at and what do I have to prepare for and what's the process going to be, so that it's useful both to the applicant and to residents and other people in the town and to the BOS who has to administer it. So it is, I think at the moment it is 15 pages, but it's the good news on that is that there'll be very little need, I think, for very many supplemental regulations. Some towns had a shorter have a shorter bylaw, but then they write a lot of really long regulations. So this is a compromise trying to give you sort of the startup, so the town has a lot of information that's, once it's hopefully accepted, it's right out there, everyone knows what the rules are, what the time periods are, how it's going to work, and there'll be some minor things that have to be specified, but it's not going to be another huge job. Could be famous last words, but I don't think so. So that's the three things that we went after to correct the things that have changed since our shorter bylaw was written, and we hope that this addresses both standards and things that are allowed under state laws, and lets us supplement and have priorities accounted for that we care about in our town, and to have it be transparent for everyone so they know how it's going to work. So you guys, we've all been thinking here, what have I left out? What do we need to say?
They might think of something.
Oh, they might.
I think you covered it.
Okay.
Short of going through the whole bylaw.
No, we don't do
I thought
that.
it was really well-written, a nice comprehensive document, really. Nice job, all you guys.
Okay, good. Well, you'll have a final draft in the morning, and we still have a few formatting and some small issues, but you'll get the best copy we can get to you in the morning. It may not be totally pretty in all cases. But.
Can I ask you a question, or
sure, any of us.
recommendation? Is it possible in your definitions to define abandonment? Because it'd be really helpful for us to know exactly what that means, where, a project isn't worked on for a certain amount of time, that's considered abandonment?
Okay.
Well,
If you possibly can.
Well, we can consider that, but we also have there the time frame of which a permit
Runs.
Right, it's only
runs.
one
It's a year.
It's short, so
Okay.
if after a year they don't come in for renewal, then
And they're
Or if after a year they don't do any work, that would be
That's right. And they're-
considered abandonment?
And there are quarterly reports that are due when you do have a permit. You can be tracking it right, and
Okay.
the board does have the ability to call the permittee in at any time and say, what's going on here in terms of, what you said the project was, and to sort of intervene.
Okay.
And you have cease and desist if it came to that at any point. But I don't know if we have.
Maybe it's not necessary that
Yeah, it
way.
may not
it
be.
may not be.
Yeah,
We'll
I
give
think-
it one more thought.
Look at it,
Okay.
yeah.
How about the explosion?
Yeah, I had a question we allow blasting, drilling and blasting, but there's no explosives that can be used. So would that be through water blasting that's allowed, or air? What is blasting?
That's a good question.
The intention was blasting through rock and ledge and
Yeah.
things that would tend to disrupt a neighborhood.
Right.
That was the intention.
Right. That's why no commercial mining is allowed. You saw that. There's a prohibition against commercial mining, which uses a lot of that kind of heavy equipment. And
So it wouldn't be fracking?
no, it's, but, again,
Without the aid of drilling or blasting?
without the aid of
Gotcha.
drilling. But this would be, I'd say you're getting into realms on that one, that when you forward it to town council, say, have we closed that loophole? So I'd make a note to make sure that that is asked, because that's where, I think that's more of a legal issue to make sure that the wording meets what we're aiming for.
Okay. I don't think I had any other questions. Oh, question on, it's page 7 of the most recent draft. It talks about debt, and it says that no debt is owed to the town by the applicant and owner. Does that mean that neither can owe any money to the town in order for this? Okay, I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't either or, it's neither can owe.
And that's pretty, as I think we said last time we were here, there's not very much original thinking in this document. We've stolen from many, many towns. And so the good news about that is that it's all been approved by the Attorney General's office. And that particular clause turns up pretty much universally to protect each town.
Well, we do that
So-
for other
Yeah.
permits
Yes, we
as
do.
well.
So it's a, yeah,
It's perfect.
it's meant to be both, anyone who's involved with this legally.
Gotcha.
If they're, you know, if they owe something to the town, the project doesn't go ahead.
Okay. Let's see, minor typo, on page 17, you've got sit instead of silt, I think it's silt that you mean to say.
Page 17 typo.
No, page 7.
Oh, page 7.
Yeah, it's number 4, under 6.2, site plan requirements, it says permanent drainage of the sit. So I think
Okay.
it just means silt.
If that's the only one you found, we're
I think it
lucky.
means site, actually.
And then there's a
Oh, oh, site, it means
Oh,
site.
the site, okay.
Yeah.
Under 7.2.5, that's a repeat of 6.4.1.3.
Repeat
Can you say that one again?
6.1.
So 7.2.5
Yeah.
Is
is
there-
the same language you have in 6.4.1.3.
6.4.1. Okay,
1.3.
thank you for
Yeah.
catching that. We thought we'd caught our dupes.
Yeah, it's,
You also put it in
really.
just to see if you were reading.
Yeah, right.
I read it.
Yeah, you get good grades.
Yeah, so it looked great. You guys did a really nice job. Super thorough.
So in the big scheme of things, lots of exemptions clearly put forth, so many projects, ongoing projects, will continue to go as they are without any need for anything more being done. And at the point where there are not exemptions, very clear procedure to get a permit. So, did you have something before we opened it up?
No, I'd like to hear comments from the...
Okay.
Okay,
So
all
we're
right.
glad to hear comments from...
Raise your hand and identify yourself if you've got questions. Anybody?
Alan Wheelock on Center Street. Again, I just want to thank this small group for tremendous work in a very compressed period of time.
Thank you,
Very
Helen.
nice.
Thank you.
I have a question for Rebecca. Hi, that's Rebecca Lipton, 30 Prospect Road. You said there's 1,000-yard, Brian, that is already a state law. I mean, that's like 35 tractor-trailer loads of sand for normal practices. Do you know what state law that it is an exemption? It seems excessive, 1,000 yards.
The 1,000 yards is what we collectively decided, looking at other towns, that would be agreeable based on what most ag, beyond cranberries, would typically remove in their operations. The state law does not give a yardage limit, and the Attorney General will probably mention that in her comments if it gets to that point. The state law is under zoning, Chapter 48, Section 3. That's where it talks about the different aspects of agriculture, and that the town cannot unnecessarily put burdens on that agricultural operation, requiring special permits, bylaws, things of that nature. So it's a very broad statement. What we try to do is take that broad oversight that is allowed under ag and bring some specificity to it as best we can without violating that provision. So the Attorney General will certainly comment probably on that 1,000 yards, because it doesn't say 1,000 yards. But they've
It
let
doesn't
it go.
say it in the law?
No.
Okay. Well, we really couldn't hear you, but we thought we heard you say that was a state law, that it
No,
just
talking
seems
to the broad-
excessive. If you lived in a small rural community and on a side road, I would think that people would think that 35, 36 big tractor-trailer trucks, usually with 28 yards of sand and gravel, going by their pristine home, making their windows all dirty and muddy, and it would be a problem, you know, and I feel like people might complain about that. Doesn't seem like normal agricultural practices to me.
No, it depends on the size of the operation. If you have a large farm, 30 trucks doing a project is really pretty
And
small.
when that sand and gravel is removed from that area, how do we monitor or police them? I mean, they could bring it to another bog, but then they could sell it off their bog in, say, Middleborough or wherever, Carver or wherever. So how do we monitor that? You know, I'm certainly not going to go policing people when they're taking our important filtration systems for our water supplies out and chase them around to find out what they're doing with it.
This
It's a concern.
bylaw or any rule that the town has is not foolproof. I mean, even if they had a permit to take the 1,000 yards out, say, you still have the same train of
I just
thought
think-
there. So really, whether you're going to have it written down or not, someone can circumvent it if they really want to.
Right, and that's a problem. I mean, I just think 1,000 yards a year is excessive.
That's fine. We didn't think it was.
It's common, some towns, many towns had 1,000. It's per project. Sometimes it's not for a year, and keep that distinction in mind. And some towns had a bit more, some towns had less, 300, 500, whatever. And it's...
Well, I would think that, excuse me one second, I would think it would, that volume of sand and gravel would require a permit.
Well, that's what we had to determine. The exemptions clause that's allowed because of the state zoning and agriculture acts makes the exemptions clause the hardest part of this bylaw. We've spent more time on it and more time thinking about it, more time reading and talking to other towns about it. It's anecdotal, and Brian can probably supplement this, but Plymouth has had a lot of earth removal, and they've had a lot of headaches over their earth removal, and they keep on trying to figure out how to get a handle on it. It's a big town, it's 100 square miles. And they just did another update within about a year ago, and they had 23 meetings over 2 years to try to figure this out, including, and exemptions was one of the biggest things they had to figure out. And they have a very, very respected town planner named Lee Hartman. He's been around a long time, he's highly respected. And he said, this has been the most humbling experience I've ever worked on. This has been the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. Because, and I think they still feel they got better, but because there are these broad allowances under the zoning and the agricultural acts that are fairly broad, and there's a lot of case work now to try to figure out what can you do as a town to try to be fair to both the town and to the growers. We've looked at all the case law, we've looked at what other towns have gone through. Most other towns paid consultants, so we learned from them and about what did the consultants say you could get away with. And we came up with different levels of exemptions. Halifax, for example, has 1,000 cubic yards, flat exemptions for suburban development stuff, for agriculture, cranberries, and for, what's the other common one? There are 3 of them. I'll think of it. Housing, I guess it was. They just have 1,000 cubic yards. So we decided to try to tailor it more. And remember, it's not necessarily per year. It's per project. So some
If you had a project on your left side and a project on your right side, and you're in the middle, you know, you're going to have 70 trucks going by your house every day. And to me, that it's an excessive number.
No, that's...
I understand the concern, and I actually experienced this near my house last summer where they refurbished the old whiting box.
Mm-hmm.
And all day long, it was truck after truck after truck bringing sand in. And when they dumped the sand with big dump trucks, it sounded like a cannon going off from the tailgate slam down. So that was the downside. The positive side is that's beautifully maintained property. I mean, it's just beautiful. Those are probably some of the nicest blocks in this town. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really enjoy that project, but I do enjoy having a good agricultural enterprise right near my house, which I think actually enhances our neighborhood.
That's great, but there are bogs in this area, especially on Prospect Road, that have been destroyed.
But you,
okay. And we have silt problems, we have sediment problems, we have, anybody who knows anything about soil can just go down there. Not to mention the flume that went under from Carver Green, and that pollution to Carver residents came all the way down.
this project,
No soil.
these bylaws distinguish between normal operating procedures like cleaning out your ditches and, you know, straightening out your canal or whatever it is, and doing major projects, as Brian said, you know, adding a new bog, putting in a pond, something that you know is going to be a large project. It will now have to come before the selectmen. Right now it doesn't, because it's, you know, it doesn't work that way. So that's a step in the right direction. And other than that, as Alan said, we're trying to figure out a way that you don't want the farmers feeling that they're bound too tightly, that because this is for normal maintenance, which is allowed by state law. So, you know, we're going to see when it gets to our attorney if there's but 1,000 has been used by many towns, and that's a parameter that has been approved. Some lower parameters have also been approved, so, and a few higher, some much higher. So it's what we're trying to find our way on in terms of, you know, what'll work and what's fair and to our agricultural community, but doesn't abuse the town and the residents.
I would just add, by far the biggest struggle, I think, along the way, as Linda alluded to earlier, is dealing with the exemptions. And it's all about balancing individual rights versus protecting the town. And, you know, it's sort of a gray area. And I think the committee did a pretty darn good job of finding the middle ground. I mean, it's not perfect. And those of us that maybe aren't farmers and a resident might like that number to be less, and others would like it to be more. And, of course, we tried to find the middle ground, and I think we did, actually.
Well, the difference here is that if this bylaw passes, there'll be a lot more reason for residents and applicants and farmers and to talk to each other all the time and say, I don't understand what's going on there. And we haven't really had the ability to do that. And so we'll all get educated a bit. You know, the farmers have a right to be doing their stuff. And, you know, the farmer might say, hey, you know, I'm cleaning out my ditches. That's what I do. And they're not selling it. That's not a commercial operation.
Yeah, that's a little different than, you know.
Yeah. So
35 tractor trailer loads of sand going by your house 100 times a day.
Sir, in the back?
Yeah, Justin Shepherd, Cross Street. I had a question where you get the 1,000 yards as well. It sounds like you looked at a bunch of different towns. Topography of Plympton is relatively flat compared to, you know, Plymouth, where you've got Pine Hills, where you've got literally like small mountains out there. So pulling out 1,000 yards from Plymouth on the side of a, you know, small mountain is different than a completely flat area. Did you look at that one coming up with 1,000 yards?
we looked at what the towns had. I'm not sure. I at least didn't think about the topography, so I don't know what anyone else wants to say. I didn't take that into account, I'll be honest. That wasn't something I thought about. But we looked at 30 towns and then narrowed it down to about 15 or 20 we looked at more closely. And 1,000 was pretty average, but it ranged from somewhere 100. Dunstable is 12.5 yards.
12.5 yards or 12,000? 12.5
yards. It's low. Before you need a permit. But they'd been burned by a case, frankly, when their earth removal law got violated, and a project happened, and they won in court after 8 years, and they had a whole forest taken down. So they reacted like, that's not going to happen again. So they went the other way. So, I mean, this is something that, you know, I'd say, think about the draft. The draft will probably be posted online, won't it, at some point in the next couple of days. I'd say read it, think about it, and that's what the next 6 weeks can be for. We're going to try to hold as a subgroup. We're going to have an information session probably in early May. We'd like to do it after we've had feedback from the lawyers ourselves, because we don't know what they're going to say. You know, they may say in, out, no, yes. So it seems like it would be better to have an information session when we have a better idea of what they might be saying back to us. And then in the 10 days or so before town meeting, we'll have an information session, and maybe you all will have spent a lot of time thinking, and we'll try it again. You know, we'll keep on thinking, so we're ready for town meeting. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Great. Anybody else have a question?
I do have, Marty Nover. When the town council's looking at the bylaw, maybe the board can ask them about the quantity and whether or not the town would have the ability to set that quantity or not. It appears that some towns are lower than 1,000, and that's gotten by their town council and the Attorney General, so maybe that could be a specific question to ask them, so that when, just before town meeting, that the number 1,000 could change
so we can
easily.
amend it at town meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
so are you referring particularly to the 1,000-yard one, or all of them?
Yeah, maybe all of them, but in particular 1,000.
Yeah. It's Marshfield's 100, Swampscott's 300, Sutton's 300, other towns were 500. I mean, it is all over, but they're rare, and then you hit 1,000, and you have like 10 towns that were, you know, so it was sort of like the breaking point, and then not many were over 1,000.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely check on that.
That'd be a good idea.
Especially with our sole source aquifer. We have an aquifer, and those hills and sand and gravel are filtering us out, and we have no protection from, you know, the federal government, because we don't have a wellhead, and this is a public well supply. So we are on our own.
It talks about a wellhead in
Yeah,
here.
the wellhead areas are certainly going to be identified, and they get, under this, they're taken into account. And that's something that the town can actually look at expanding the
Right, and I'm
definition.
concerned with all of our wells.
Yes, that's what, and that, it's both. That both of those are in here, the private wells and the public.
All right, so you guys are going to put together
Yeah, we have
a final draft,
a final draft and get it to you in the morning.
and we'll get it on the town's website.
And I think it's fair to say that if we have any issues that even come up in the next couple of weeks, we might feed you questions that maybe we thought should be answered. So if you don't mind, that might be useful to us.
Sure.
So do we want that on the website?
Well, normally you
before
don't
town council?
put drafts up before
Town
they're
council.
vetted by town council,
Okay, yeah.
because then you've got multiple drafts.
That's a
kicking
good
around.
idea, yeah.
So why don't we get it vetted by council, and then we'll get the approved
That's a good idea.
draft on the website,
Okay.
prior to your meeting, where
Right.
you're going to be discussing it, so that everybody has a chance to read it and can ask informed questions.
Yeah. We haven't set the date for that meeting because we're assuming that town council is going to take a good part of the month, so we're guessing the first 10 days of May.
Well, and we hope that it'll be under 2 weeks so that it can be in the warrant.
We can
before
try
it closes.
to put some
When you
pressure
know
on.
that, well, then we can try to set the public meeting.
You
And
got it.
As soon as we have the document, we will make it public for people to
Good.
really look at.
All right, thank you.
So maybe I should make a motion that we take the slightly edited version that we received tomorrow and send to town council.
Yeah.
For their comment.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, all in favor? Aye. Yeah,
Aye.
good, perfect.
All right, thank you
So
very much.
we'll get moving on it as soon as we get it from you guys.
Good, thank you.
Not to be redundant, but you all cannot imagine how much time went into this, and pretty amazing to get this done. I think Ryan mentioned took 2 years and 23 meetings or 23 drafts to get through this,
And they still had trouble 2 nights before town meeting. They were still going through changes, and they still aren't happy. But it's a 100-square-mile town with a lot of activity. We're not the same. But it's a hard issue because you're not starting from scratch. You're working within 2 very broad state laws that make allowances for things. So it's trying to find a way that you can work within that and be fair to all parties.
It's a balancing act.
It's a balancing, it's hard.
It is.
All right, well, thank you very much for all your
Thank
work
you.
on this, and so
Thank you.
we'll look forward to the final draft, and then we'll be in touch as soon as we get a response from council.
Hey, before Alan leaves, do you have 2 minutes for me to bring up?
Almost made it.
So this is a little out of order, but I attended the very last portion of the bylaw review committee last week, and they are intending to have 3 newspaper articles sort of as a means of educating public before town meeting about their 2 articles and the bylaw revisions they're making. And they were kind enough to sort of ask us whether we wanted to review those articles ahead of time. I received the first one actually just a little bit ago and read it. It's amazing, but I'd like to make a motion that we feel comfortable with the bylaw review committee going ahead and publishing those without us reviewing them first.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, so I'll second your motion. All right, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Alan, very much.
They're doing a great job of education
Thank you.
for really complex issues.
All right, so looks like Liz is still with Finance Committee.
Fire?
Yeah, do you want to move on to fire, talking about shared services?
I saw Phil Curran come by the corridor, so I'm not sure if
Okay.
he's here.
Yeah, why
Let me
don't we
just
wait?
take a check.
Yeah.
We'll see who are multi-issue people here.
Do you guys want to stick around for fire and EMS? No, okay. All right, well, oh, hey, Phil, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. All right. All right, well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So it'll be on the website and, yeah, take a look.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, so, do you want to talk about EMS shared services? Where we are with the process and?
Well, maybe Phil can update us.
Okay.
Okay. Where do you want to be?
Why don't you come up here?
All right.
Use that microphone.
All right. Do you want what we have from Halifax, just from us, or?
Well,
So maybe update us in terms of, last I remember, we were talking about training, having Halifax and Plympton.
Yeah, I just spoke with the chief, well, we've been emailing back and forth
Yep.
today, and we're setting that up. We're just trying to get all our ducks in a row and get the times right.
So is that relatively soon, or what kind of time frame are we
We're
talking?
thinking the first or second week in May probably for that. And then we're also thinking of also doing a joint refresher for hazmat because of Cisco, the way they have all the chemicals. So it'll behoove both towns to do that anyway. And so we're setting that up. I reached out to one of my friends. He's on the state hazmat team. He has some time that he can go through a refresher with both departments. And I just have to verify what they want for money and stuff like that with Halifax, because they have control of the money for that.
okay.
Just, I don't know if you had a moment to read, I sent out an email this afternoon. We're setting up a meeting, probably it's going to be next week, Wednesday, I think, with the 14 people from the fire committees.
Both committees? Okay.
Yeah, so we get everybody in a room to, one, introduce everybody, because a lot of them probably don't know each other,
Right.
and then talk about the tasks of the two committees.
So that's a joint meeting of both committees?
Yes. Okay,
And that's not this Wednesday, it's next Wednesday.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just waiting. I gave everybody Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday options. Looks like Wednesday's going to win out.
Okay.
Wednesday usually wins out.
Yeah. So at that point, I think we will get the fire technical committee going, taking the recommendations and starting to go through them. The oversight committee is really into the issues around organizational governance, if we were to look at shared services. And then we have a meeting with Halifax the week after, on a Thursday night, I believe.
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night,
Wednesday
okay.
night, right.
So we'll, at that point, I think we'll be able to bring some feedback to Halifax. I met with Kim Roy today, the selectman from Halifax, and she outlined where their thinking is, you know, in terms of us going forward. I think we're in one sense, we're using them as a model. They're ahead. They've had a fire commission for a long time.
Right.
They have their act together in terms of how they approach things, and they can teach us things, and then we can, it's sort of like the earth removal. You take other towns, see what they have done, fit it to your, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Correct.
Where it doesn't make sense, you know, we just won't use it. So I think we're starting to get off the ground. We'll move forward. I do want Cisco to feel very comfortable about their, you know, their issues
Yeah, we were
with
just down there
ammonia
today.
and oxygen.
They're a little nervous, but
Sure.
I'll keep on top of them.
Okay.
And we'll keep them in the loop too, you know.
Did we have other issues that you
Well,
were
no,
looking?
I'm glad that you got into the building, and I'm sure you've been in there before.
Yeah,
but,
several times.
Now you're really, you know, paying attention to where everything is, because, yeah.
I've learned that.
So
Yeah.
that's good, and I'm sure that made them happy too, that you
Nope.
were in there.
They're good. I walked through it again today because they had a fire alarm, so I said, well, let's go walk through and see what exactly happened. And that's when he told me he was a little nervous. He goes, I really don't want you guys going anywhere. I said, well, that's just hearsay and nonsense right now. I said, I don't think anybody knows.
Who were you talking to?
I was talking to the safety gentleman.
Okay, it wasn't Rick Jordan then?
No, he came out afterwards and he walked. Paul, yes.
Oh, okay.
And then, so I just told him, I said, when something happens, I will tell you, or the Board of Selectmen will tell you.
Well,
Yeah,
Rick
and
will be involved,
Rick's going to be
too.
right in there.
So,
Yeah,
so he'll be right on top of it, so
Good.
that'll be good. Yeah.
So
Sure.
this is definitely redundant, but just because it keeps coming up, I think we can't stress enough, and maybe for people, if there's anyone that's hearing this for the first time, that we are exploring possibilities, that
Right.
we have made absolutely no decisions. The shared services seems like a totally reasonable thing to look at, but we have made absolutely no decisions. And lots of people fail at failed services, and there's a reason they fail. And if it looks like it isn't going to work, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Equally, if it looks like it could work, we want to make sure we've explored it.
Right.
I agree.
I think that might have to be the disclaimer that we just have to keep saying.
Just keep saying it to people, yeah, because I mean, I have people that come in every day, you know, for burn permits, and they start talking, and they're like, "What? Are you guys going away?" I go, "No one's going anywhere."
No one's
yet."
going
No,
away.
I know, and
we would ever even close that facility.
No.
It wouldn't make sense.
I don't think it could, really,
No,
because we've looked at it, the two of us, and, you know, for them to come from way over Halifax to here is crazy, and for
Right.
us to go way over, you know, it's just, but where those stations are, you know.
There's no
something
intent.
can work, it
Right,
can work, you
right.
know, but
And maybe it's most important that your guys and
I keep it reiterating every day. I just had a meeting with all of them, and I went over. I said, "What do you guys think we should do? What do you want to do?" And you know, I came up with a bunch of things, and a lot of them we're already working on. You know, we just had another reversal. We had a lady die on 44 on us, and we got her back. So I have to say, this town has probably some of the best medics in this state, hands down. I'm going to reiterate that again, because I was there, so I was watching her, and she just went systematically through it, and then I said, "What do you want to do?" And she just went to town, and by the time we got her back at the hospital, she was up and talking to us.
Great to hear.
So I think it's, I'm not patting myself on the back because it's them doing it, but we're doing a lot better things. I got about 10 things here, but I mean, I'll type it up and I'll give it to you guys what we're working on. And there has been some issues in the past, as you guys know, but like I said, I just went through it, and I asked them, I said, "What do you think we do, good, bad, and the ugly?" I said, "Give it to me." And they did, and it wasn't that bad, because half of it I'm already on, so I serve at your pleasure, so.
That's,
But I,
here you guys are working on it, and
Yeah, and we just had another graduation from the fire academy, so we're down to like 3 now, so. And if this works out with Halifax with that money, then we'll be down to 0.
Yeah.
And everybody will be cross-trained.
that's terrific.
It is, and we're saving money.
Right,
that's-
saving money and just being really where we should be.
Right.
For training
Right, because,
purposes and
you know,
liability
like I
purposes.
said, like I told them the other day, I said, whether this goes forward or not, I said, we still have to have a solid fire department and a EMS department. I said, because the town's not going anywhere. I said, so you still have to respond. And
they're on the committee, so.
yeah, so I think they'll feel better.
Yeah.
But
And the meeting in Halifax won't be a meeting where they'll be able to participate, but they can certainly go and listen, and you'll
No.
be participating.
Yeah.
So, you know, that'll be a public meeting, and
Yeah.
post it over in
we'll
Halifax.
see what, you know, we'll just go there and listen, see what they have to say.
And it makes so much sense to explore this with grant money. This isn't the town's money.
No, I know.
We've got a grant.
That's what I told them, and I said,
to help us
especially
with
for the training, they're like, well, well, where's it gonna come from? I said, it's coming from the grant money. I said,
Right.
so that's a no-brainer. He goes, what about the other? I said, it's coming from the grant money. I said, so I just gotta keep forcing it into them.
this. Yeah,
Firemen are
and
hard.
we're just talking and exploring.
Oh, I know, and the more I get into this, and the more I drill down, I think something will come out of it, but
Yeah, I think good things will come out of it.
yeah, we'll come out with a better sense of what we need, or,
We got to have a roadmap of where we're going to go over the next 3 to 5 years. That's the intent. You know, we got to get it down on paper so people
okay,
know.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
With a
That's the-
fiscally sound budget though, too.
Right.
Yeah, but that's the
I
purpose
just-
of the committees. I want, you know, I expect opposing views going in,
Oh, yeah,
and we'll work through it, and you know,
We'll get there.
compromise is part of it.
It's just, you know, it's a small department, and it has to be thought of as that, because you can't ask for, you know, $1.2, $1.4 million for a department that does 700 runs a year. You gotta be smart about it, and that's where I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through all the budgets, all the line items and everything, and I started, you know, I'm not going crazy on anything, and it's just like, and you know, I'm looking at the equipment, you know, some of it we might be able to condense, make two into one, stuff like that. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, it's that time.
Good.
Yeah, not that I'm a great chief, but I know what I'm doing. So I'll help you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll be there on the 25th?
I will be there on the 25th with bells
And
on.
then you guys are meeting,
Probably next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday.
so that would also be the 25th?
No, you're the week before, right?
Oh, I'm
That's the
sorry,
18th.
the 18th. So you're meeting the 18th with the fire committee?
Once I get all that back, it looks like
Right, and
Wednesday.
then we'll meet the following week to start to talk about the process to explore shared services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming in, Phil.
No problem. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Like I said, I'll give you these, I'll type them up.
Great.
Because it's just so you guys understand where
Sure.
we're going.
Good.
So
Sure.
We're doing good things. All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Did you have a
So-
question?
I do, I need some help. I need to, you know where I live, Plympton Green.
Yeah?
Well, the photography studio across the street seemed to think that a fireman had told this photographer that my lane is public way. And they just, time after time, I've asked them, do not trespass.
Who's going in the lane?
The photographer. And she's bringing, you know, people who she's taking photographies
Okay.
with. Today, they actually went down the lane, and the woman's pregnant. I mean, this is my
Whose
property.
jurisdiction would this be? Would this be?
She said a fireman said it was public way. Now, how can that be? Because at the very end, it's private property. If it's a public way, you would have a way to turn around, one. I mean,
I'm not sure.
I'm not
It's-
sure either.
Let us
I'm
look
not-
into it.
Yeah.
I don't put up, you know,
No trespassing?
I don't want to do that. How many times does it take? They were having a...
Or just private
a
property.
class. Right.
Just
They brought a whole class, yes. And I told them, you know, I would love to let you do that, but, you know, somebody could get hurt. Before you know it, you're taking pictures and there's a car coming up the lane.
Okay.
And that exact same thing happened. Now, they go to the tree, right on the prop, that's fine. But she was taking pictures of a pregnant and the dad, and here comes a 4.5, 5-year-old kid running towards, he already got across the lane, the road, my dirt road, well, the green
Why
road.
don't you write down your email address for me so you can give me?
Actually, I don't, yeah, my email is Suffering Succotash.
Okay, well,
But
just,
I'll
can you write it
I'll
down?
give it to you and give
So,
it to you.
because I just will need some specifics. I don't really
Right.
want to talk about it
Right, yeah, I
here.
know,
So
yeah.
give me the specifics, and then I will reach out to the appropriate people, and we'll try to get this resolved.
Yeah, WW263.
No, we're on recording,
Yeah, so
you
don't
have to
say your
it out
email
loud,
address.
Unless you want everyone to know.
Well, they can find out if they want. You know.
And then why don't you write down your phone number too?
Yes, that's a landline. Yeah, you just,
Yeah, we'll try to get it resolved for you.
like the 5th or 6th.
Perfect.
So I needed to come
Okay.
and share this.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank
unloading.
you. Thank you. So I'll be in touch.
Have a safe, comfortable week. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we already did, all right, fire EMS, talked about animal control, recommendation, votes for town meeting warrant, so that will be a little bit later today. We don't have Joy here yet either. And planning board update on articles, do we have anything? Are they coming in? Oh, they're going to come in because they're having their hearing, and then they're going to come in and make a recommendation. Okay, why don't we keep moving with maybe the correspondence and try to get the other things done?
Liz is doing it.
She wants to do it? Okay. So what do you want to do? You want to
Recess
take
for
a
5
recess? Okay.
Recess!
All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll be back.
We straightened out all
All
that
right,
other
so
stuff.
we're back.
Excellent.
All right, so welcome back, Liz.
Thank you.
We started without you. All right, so do you want to do report and
Sure.
correspondence while we're waiting?
Sure. So as far as my update is concerned, I've been corresponding with Brian Wick quite a bit today. What we decided might be the best course of action, assuming that the board is okay with it, for Monday, April 30th at 6 p.m., he was thinking that maybe he could come in to the meeting, along with maybe some FinCom representatives and even Barbara, if she's available, just to kind of go over the warrant and some of the different motions and that sort of thing. And then separate and aside from that, he was going to set up a smaller, more informal meeting with just Barbara and I sometime in May to go over kind of a last-minute review of both warrants.
Sounds good.
And I'm still working on the special town meeting warrant with Barbara, kind of getting that assembled and everything. We have quite a few articles on there, some different school department stuff, just transferring things back and forth. Concerning the Corey policy that we adopted and everything, I was hoping if I could be authorized to have maybe 30 minutes or so with legal counsel, just to go over what the protocol is, if we haven't been doing them for certain positions that really should have them, is that okay to go back and ask somebody to do it even though they may be already employed with the town? I just want to make sure that we're on firm footing and that we're keeping it consistent for everybody. So, assuming if the board's okay with that, I'd like to just run that by David Jenkins.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So we voted?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we authorize Liz to contact David Jenkins to discuss the Corey policy and implementation.
Excellent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm setting up a meeting with Old Colony Planning Council and an intern that they have also helping them to begin work on our central master plan. So we're tossing around some dates just to kind of get them the information they need to get started.
Good.
And then we'll make sure that we have some public input sessions and that kind of thing as the process evolves. We're also, as part of that, I had to help them identify which land area here is specifically town-owned, because obviously we acquired the 5-acre parcel. And that sort of brought up another issue that Wendy had made me aware of from the assessor's office, that sometimes in the past, apparently when parcels have been gifted to the town, the people didn't always follow through with providing a deed. And apparently our auditor has picked up on that on a few occasions and said, well, technically the town doesn't really own it yet. It's kind of in limbo if you don't have a deed. So that's something that at some point we might want to look at cleaning some of that up and go through some of the older records, whether it be minutes of selectmen's meetings to try to determine. I think that was how the auditor found a couple of those and said, oh, wait a minute. You know, these, even though they were formally accepted by the Board of Selectmen, it doesn't appear that you have the deed on file. And
Would that be
apparently,
something Alan Boterno could help us with?
I think so. I think he's already trying to help with a few of those pieces.
Okay,
I think that they found another one just recently on Palmer Road, she was saying, that's actually town-owned, but, so they're chasing down a lot of the owner's unknown pieces, but I think going forward, we might want to develop some kind of a protocol or whatever, that if somebody does come forward with land, not that it's all the time, but if that happens.
So why don't you create a handout that we would give to them?
Okay. I think that would be helpful, and maybe we can get input from some different people.
While we're on that, it was posted on Plympton, Helping Plympton. I think Karen Foy posted it. It's a website where you go in, and it's got all the towns. So you go to Plympton, and it looks like the assessors map. But the neat thing is, you click on any house, and it immediately brings up in the left-hand column all the information on that house. What the valuation is, what this land size. So I'll circulate that, but it's a great tool. I've been using it, just playing with it.
What's it called?
It's Map Geo, and then it's dash, and you put in the town, Plympton.
Okay.
But I'll send you the link.
Interesting.
Okay, and I also met with the Historical Commission briefly this evening to go over their gazebo project. So we're going to check a few things with the state just to make sure that there are no issues as far as obtaining quotes or anything like that, just to make sure that we're on firm footing there. And as far as correspondence, you already voted on these appointments last time, but Bree had a chance to do the official appointment slip, so we just need all of those signed.
Okay.
And then I'll make a copy and give them to Tara. Then, also from correspondence, we received a notice from Keolis, which is the organization that works with the state to manage all of their herbicide application along different rights-of-way. So it's just providing the notification that they are going to be doing an application, and if people want more information, they can contact them. Let me see here.
So how do people know? Does it go on the website or something?
They send out these notifications to all the different municipalities, but they actually have an engineering company that assists them with the process. So if you wanted hard copies of any of the documents, they go through like doing a touch-up application, a brush application in non-sensitive areas in terms of environmental, and then they also go along all the rights-of-way.
Would it make sense to post that on the website? Because people will be coming to us and...
I can post it. It does walk you through, I'm just looking at this here, it kind of maps out where to go on their website, so I can maybe post a
Tell them
picture
where they
of
can-
this.
yeah.
I might just post the direct picture from this.
Sure.
Just so that they can look into it, and then if anybody has any concerns, they can direct it. I received a letter in the mailbox from Jack O'Leary regarding the Board of Health. It's addressed to Dear Plympton residents, so I don't know if this went out to a lot of people. It looks somewhat similar to something that I remember seeing when I first started here that came out about the 5-acre rule and the Board of Health.
Is it dated?
This is not dated, the green part, but then behind it, there's another letter that looks like it was issued to the Board of Health in August of 2017, but this appears to be an original, as well as nitrogen information. I know that we had Art come in, and he addressed this letter, I believe, with the board. I think I was still fairly new here.
So is this just that again, or is it something?
It looks like it's basically the same, but I think that the letter that came out when I first started here was on a slightly different shade of green paper and it was maybe a little bit longer.
Can you circulate the letter at least so we can see it?
Yes. And there's also a business card attached to it. So I don't know if this is new and was just meant for me.
How'd you get it?
It was in my mailbox. And there's a business card on it.
Yeah, this looks like he's wanting to sit down and speak with you. That might make sense. The guy's pretty brilliant. He's pretty opinionated, but he's pretty brilliant. He knows this stuff.
So this is still talking about the 5-acre rule?
I mean, you have a lot on your plate, but I think when there's time, that might be worthwhile. It's good for
Sure,
you
maybe
to
at the
meet him.
town meeting.
Yeah, give him a call. Tell him you want to just sit down and understand the issue.
Okay.
You should meet him anyway.
Then we have 2 dog bite files. The first one, which I believe is the one that we were pursuing with Frank, he did respond via email to Bree back on April 3rd. And it looks like there was a quarantine, and it says ACO report will follow when appropriate.
There was something, though, that said there was no rabies found.
Right, we did get a report from Beth Israel that said,
That's,
or no, was it BCA?
no, that's a different
That
one.
was from veterinarian, that no rabies was found, which I presume means that the animal was euthanized, because the only way to test for that is
It's their brain, right?
to remove the head and send it to the state lab.
Okay.
If that's the case, as soon as we have confirmed there's no rabies, then the issue, well, that obviously there's no quarantine. because
Right,
no-
and there's nothing, no other action to take regarding the dog.
It appears that there's two different addresses, though, and two different names, so I think that there's two different incidents. This one is for a different individual's name.
So that's the
report of the
report
no.
where it said it was not.
Yeah, so that was the human exposure, was this person.
Okay, then there's this file, which is for Upland Road, which is different than Cranberry Knoll. So that was what confused me a little bit, and it
So there
looks
were
like
two
she
bites
has,
then.
there were two unrelated bites.
But regardless, a report is due, and
We went through this many months ago. We
Right.
created a new reporting system, and I love Frank, but we were explicitly clear that with any animal incident, we needed a report,
Right.
and that report had to go to Board of Health as well. I'm willing to give him a call and just go over that again. We just need these reports, whether there's any action necessary, whether he perceives it as a problem or not. I think we have to have these reports.
And then that was how he responded for Upland Road. Just this little thing up here.
that's who was bit, right?
No, this was Bree's correspondence with Frank regarding the
Okay.
Upland Road instance, which is different than the other one.
Okay.
Well, we were clear last year that the form of his report needed to be the new report.
The new
form.
report form.
Okay. That was all he responded with, I believe, is just those few sentences.
Well, I'm glad to be in touch with him and see if we can't sort that out.
That'd be good.
Okay, I'll put that here. And that does it for me for correspondence. I do have some extra draft copies of the warrant if you'd like them for when FinCom comes in.
We got him.
You got them?
Yep, all
Okay.
set.
Okay. Good, because some of them
Planning
didn't.
board's coming in to tell us about their recommendations?
I had said to Bree that where we don't know what time they were ending, I had left it that she wasn't gonna put it on the warrant and that Deb was just gonna poke her head in and kind of let us know how they voted.
Okay.
But then it looks like it's on the warrant now.
Okay.
I'm not on the
On the
warrant, I'm
agenda.
sorry, on the agenda. I have town meeting on the brain.
Okay.
On the agenda, so I'm not sure if that's happening or not. I can run down the hall even and see where they're at. I saw Bob leave, so I'm assuming.
You think they're done?
They might be done. I can go check.
Okay, and then we can talk to Joy while you're doing that, we can start the ball rolling, and then FinCom will be in here.
They should be in
anytime?
here in about 20 minutes. They were crunching some final numbers, and I'm not certain if they'll be ready to vote on the budget this evening, or if that one may have to wait, but we can
Okay.
discuss the others.
Okay, all right, perfect.
I'll go see about.
All right, you don't have your
Rush
budget
me,
report.
don't rush on my time. I'm fine to sit here. I just,
Yeah, is it possible to get copies of Joy's budget request so we know what we're even talking
It
about?
wasn't the
Do you have
budget
one, Jo?
request.
yeah, I can go
It
get
was, I
it,
think,
but
the
it wasn't.
van.
It was the van, which is a warrant article. There's the van article for $55,000 on
Okay.
annual town meeting. And then I think as far as the budget, it was just to increase
Right, the
Joy
salaries.
by a day, so
But
she
I-
can
I
speak
think
to that.
Maybe
Okay.
the confusion was that I had originally put in a capital request form for the van, and then I put in the warrant, and I don't know if those are two of the same, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have made a
I
mistake.
think FinCom ever received the capital request.
Yeah, they did. She called me and said they did. Before
She
they got.
being-
Yeah,
Okay.
she said, oh, we're looking for your, budget receipt.
Who is she?
sheets."
Lisa?
I think so. I'm not sure. I didn't get the name, but the thing is, when she said, I got those, and she said, I also got your capital request.
There must be
So
other expenses there
I think I
besides
did
salary.
correct, too many things.
Part of the
Yeah, I'd like to see the whole
annual
thing.
All right, so are they two different things, or?
Do you have a copy of what
Yeah.
you submitted to FinCom for your actual budget,
Sure,
separate
yeah.
from the van?
I'd like to see
Okay, that might be
Yeah, I would
helpful.
too. Perfect. All right, so you're gonna go make copies. Okay.
We're going to recess.
You wanna take another recess?
Recess.
All right, John, we'll take another 5-minute recess. Thank you. All right, so we're back with Joy Marble, the Director of the Council on Aging, and we had a question on the warrant article for the van, and I think it's, what, $55,000 for a new
Yes.
van?
Yeah.
All right, but you think you may have put this in as a capital expenditure too?
I did, I mean, a while ago.
Okay.
And I think I shouldn't have done that, I don't know. I really didn't know.
Actually, that's where it should go,
Oh, okay, okay.
rather than on the warrant. Because I mean, is this going to be a one-time deal, or is this something that we're going to
Well,
finance?
that's what we were wondering about. I don't think for whatever reason that they received the capital request, because they have it on their spreadsheet as also being a warrant article.
Okay.
And normally, if it were a capital request, we would figure out like lease payments and then maybe only fund one lease payment per year and kind of break it up.
Right.
So that it's not such a huge amount. So that part would be worth maybe talking with FinCom and
Okay.
figuring out what happened there.
Okay.
Because our office did not receive any capital requests. Those all go directly to FinCom.
Okay.
I just gave it to them.
Okay.
And she did mention it on the thing, but then I did that whole thing with the warrant after that. So-
Okay.
Okay.
So, is this something that you have to have right away, or can you
No,
get through with what you
we
got?
can get through maybe another year, but
Okay.
the thing is, the van is in need of repairs. So what I have in the budget to, is, being a little safe, not safe, but, hoping that the van holds up. The thing is about the handicap van is, I was actually, before I took this position, I was at a training someplace, and the previous director was there, and she mentioned, oh, we have this van, and they said, you can't have a van that's not handicap accessible. I mean, that's just not right, and that stuck in my head, and like, oh, wow, and that was way before I even, came here. And so the thing is, then I came and, and everything's going smooth with the transportation and stuff like that, but we're not, we're not able to offer to handicapped people. So I did go, and ask, for some people that were handicapped and seniors and they said they would be in favor for it. And, the thing is, it's obviously a necessity at some point, and the van is getting older. And we also have a volunteer who does non-medical visits, and we'd like to have 2 vans, one for non-medical, one for medical. Jim tells me about when he takes certain people to the doctors, or hard to get them in and out with their walkers. They might not be in wheelchairs, but they're very hard to get in and out. And that's, a struggle on him, and, it's just, it would be better if we did,
My concern is, I have a couple of concerns. One is the Council on Aging budget seems to be adding people and expenses that's going up pretty dramatically as a percentage. So I'll go back.
Go ahead.
The part about the van, I'm not sure why we got that type van to begin with. We shouldn't have. It should have been one of those
Somebody
sliding doors and, okay. But I don't see why we need 2 vans. I really have a problem. If you get your new van, why can't we trade in the old van?
Well, we could do that, but what it would require is that the people that volunteer to take the non-medical visits have to take their vehicles. And what it does is, they want to go to Walmart, or they want to go to the dollar store. The person that's volunteer, they get very little mileage, they get no money for their time, and yes, they are a volunteer, but they're also taking the liability of,
Do you have a log of how often the van is used?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
So can we, what I would be interested in, the number of hours each day that it's actually being used, because I see the van out here and I wonder, you know.
Right.
I think you need a council on aging van, but I'm not sure you need two.
But I get that. But we're just starting the medical. I mean, he's doing the medical visits. Now we have volunteers doing the non-medical, and they're using their own vehicle. Or we're trying to get him, you know, he said on Thursdays that we can have the van from 3 o'clock on. So then people, because people are losing their licenses or not, you know, renewing them or whatever. And they need rides to places.
Sure.
And they're social visits, they're called, you know. And the thing is, if we traded in, I really don't think we'd get that much for it. And it would be a lot more service to us to have that for local visits. We're asked more often to go Hassett or Hingham or, you know, places like that, that we can't take that van. I mean, we just can't. First of all, we can't take anybody handicapped. This guy that has to be brought over, and I have volunteers doing it in their own vehicles, and I have Jim doing it, and he's doing it with that van too, but the guy has to go over to Stoughton, hyperbaric chamber, 6 weeks, has to be helped in there, helped out. Nobody else can be in the van. He has to, you know, so the schedule, like he has a schedule that he does, and he has to make it so that everybody's available, and then something like that comes up, and you have to, like, I don't know, adjust the whole thing or find help, which we are. We have volunteers. I'm actually taking the guy 2 days next week. But the thing is, the more they realize that we have services in place here, the more they ask, and then we have to kind of adjust it. And all the other transportation things out there are so expensive. Even South Shore Community Action, they're so expensive. Uber, all of them. And the seniors, they're on fixed incomes, they can't afford it. So we're relying on volunteers and, you know, mileage hours, which I don't have in my budget. I mean, you know, I didn't even put it in my budget. And yes, my budget did go up. I mean, you know, for the, I took off exercise classes because that's paid out of the formula grant, which they call the handicap, but I mean handy person grant. It's not, it's called formula grant, and that comes out of that. So I took that off, and the van's getting older, it needs new brakes, it needs, you know, stuff like that. So, I mean,
can I mention something with respect to the van? I'm wondering the best way to go about it, if we should see about adding a line to your budget that's specifically for mileage. Like the state usually assigns a mileage rate that accounts for gas mileage and wear and tear on the vehicle, and Barbara recalculates that every year, so it goes up incrementally. But I'm wondering if that should either be in your budget, or if we need to have a line item, even if it's a very small amount, but for the volunteers. Because if they are going to use the second van, my concern is that somebody who's not on the payroll using a town vehicle, like that could be a huge liability for us if the person's not covered on the town's insurance. Like by right, any employees who were using it for town business would be covered, but where it is a volunteer. But you also don't want to discourage volunteerism. So I think we need to come up with a way to make it work, either pay the people who are going to be, if we are operating a second van, like Jim's on the payroll, so that's fine if they got a new van and he's operating that one. But as far as utilizing the old one, if there is a need for it, which it sounds like
there's a lot of people that don't have their licenses,
then I think we need to examine that and figure out the best way to fund it. Either pay the volunteers a little something, and I know that they're no longer by definition volunteers at that point, but come up with something so that either they're on the town payroll and covered on our insurance, or if it's kind of an at-your-own-risk type thing and they remain volunteers, then there should be a budget line at least to pay them, like for the mileage portion of it. I I don't know. I just get concerned doing it so unofficially, but then using a town vehicle. It's not like, I don't
Why
know.
don't you look into it and see, make a recommendation? But we've got 4 cars now.
About 5, they're going to just print a copy of our budget for you guys, so about 5 minutes, Nate will be right in.
Perfect. Okay, and
We've got 4 cars, though. We've got the Ford over here, the, whatever it is, the 4-door sedan.
Well,
We've got the SUV.
yeah, I looked into that, but I was told we were not allowed to use that, so.
Well,
Who told
that's
you
not
that?
true. Who would,
That was when I first got here, right?
Okay.
Okay, so we can correct that.
Okay.
it
seems
might
to me-
make sense to evaluate and then figure out what we would get the most for either the van or that sedan, trade one of them in, and then maybe they can utilize the other vehicle for,
And I do have to say that I have
For the
looked into
non-medical visits.
other options, like I have Old Colony Planning paying, we have the Meals on Wheels going on.
Right.
So Old Colony Planning is paying the mileage for those drivers, all right? And I have Citizens for Citizens paying for the person who does the kitchen and the reception. So it's not all out of the town. I'm really trying to, branch out and try to get as much as we can get. The other thing about the van being parked here, Jim doesn't take it home, he parks it here, but he does go to, rehabs, he goes to hospitals, he goes to visit them when they get home, and I have to keep track of that for the formula grant, and I tell him that. I said, these are volunteer hours, I mean, they're not volunteer hours, but they are, he's using his own vehicle to do these things, and his wife as well. And my outreach worker, and, I'm trying to keep track of it all, but there's just so much going on that's not being accounted for.
You guys should get together and talk about
Yeah,
vehicles.
just
and
kind of
come up
figure
with a
out-
strategy that works the best. And, this made me think of what we got from Frank, from Best Chevrolet. Would Best Chevrolet donate a handicap van to
There
the
you go.
town? And
Well,
we
I
could
tried to get a
certainly
grant, I did try to get the grant too.
Okay.
And it had to be over 40 hours.
Okay.
Medical, not non-medical. So I did try to do that. I've tried everything, and I just want to have a game plan. It doesn't have to be immediate, but I know that this van isn't going to last forever,
Okay.
and I don't want to be without one.
Well, this is good because you got it on the radar. So
Okay, great.
we can talk further about that and
Awesome.
evaluate what might make sense from a
Right, it
cost
probably
perspective.
won't happen this year.
That's okay. Yeah.
But, maybe if we get this in through the capital grant, or the capital expenditures,
Right.
then we can start budgeting
Yeah.
and exploring options about donations and seeing if there's
Absolutely.
other avenues.
So,
I think that Best
about-
Chevrolet thing is, I mean, we weren't clear on whether they were just painting or offering a van, but that one would be a real service.
That would be a
and,
real
Oh,
service
yeah.
to us, and probably a real service
to a
to
lot
them.
of people.
And I think
Absolutely.
you don't have to just stop with Best, you go to all the
We
auto.
can check with
yeah.
anyone.
Anybody who
Right.
makes a van,
handicap
yeah,
van.
handicap van.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it
So-
brings up the bigger piece is that probably having discussion during the year makes sense instead of us suddenly seeing this as
Oh, I know.
as an article.
I know, but it was just,
And coordinating, that coordinating use, I mean, we have a lot of vehicles, and I think we just
Right.
haven't figured out how more than one agency to be using it at the same time
Right.
makes huge sense.
And we'll have another one coming off the police department rotation after the start of the next fiscal year that will be available. So we can look and see what makes the most sense from a services perspective, but also for cost.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds
So,
great.
do I wait for FinCom or?
No, I
okay,
think
so
No, I think we're all
we don't have
set.
to talk about the rest of the agenda?
No,
Okay.
No, you already
thanks,
did
Joy,
that.
very
All right,
Thank you.
very much.
So we'll work together.
So then, are we going to be passing over that article?
I
Is
think
that
we
what
should
we'll
pass
do?
over.
We want to hear from the FinCom, too.
Yeah, we can decide on that after, but I think
Okay.
she's all set.
I'm all
Yeah,
set.
yeah.
You're all
Okay.
set. Thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you.
Who wants these?
Those are gonna,
I'll take
Liz will
those.
make copy and then get them to Tara. All right. So do we have everything done? Oh, we still have executive session minutes from 4:13, or 4:3. Do we want to, did you have anything to check on those?
I thought they were fine. I sent you a note.
Did
And
you
the only
take
thing
me
was,
out?
I used a template, so we added town admin who wasn't there, so I'll take that off. So I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as amended
Okay.
Second.
I'll second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we did the second as well, so.
Oh, good,
all those are
okay.
Done. We already did board's goals for coming year. We did, oh, Deb
I think she may have,
left.
yes, but I know how they voted on each.
And I talked to her too and have a little more information as well.
Okay. So do you want to just share it?
Yeah, sure.
Or expecting her to come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to fast forward to those articles too, so that we can
Sure.
vote your recommendations after we discuss?
Okay.
All right, so
that-
which numbers are we
So
talking about?
the first one is Article 14, which is in regard to the enforcement section of the zoning
Okay.
bylaw. And the planning board did hold their public hearing for this article back on March 26th, and they did vote favorably to recommend this one. And this was also the article that the Bylaw Review Committee put a great deal of time and effort into drafting.
All right, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend Article 14 at the
Second.
annual town meeting. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Article 15 edits Section 1.3 of the zoning bylaw, which is specifically related to the purpose. So they reworked that section a little bit, and...
Wait a minute, where's 1.3?
15.
Article 15.
Okay, I've got Article 15.
And so the planning board voted on this article favorable
Oh, okay.
action
To rework
I
the
see.
bylaws,
Okay.
yeah.
at their March 26th public hearing as well.
Yep.
They did vote favorably on this one.
All right, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend Article 15 at the annual town meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we've got FinCom back. You want to now take a break and
Switch back.
switch gears?
Okay.
Well, thank you all for coming in.
Oh, don't thank us yet. Barbara is printing off the budget sheets for you, so you'll have a copy to refer to. FinCom has gone through and made our recommendations for the current budget based on what was presented to us by the various departments. And we have a final recommended figure of $10,903,045. So that's 10903,045, which is approximately a 5.3 increase over last fiscal year.
How much?
5.3.
Any one or two things driving that?
There are,
Which, before Nate,
go ahead.
just one thing, is that number, overall, we're looking to, our numbers should keep the tax rate at an increase of 2.5% or a little bit less.
Okay.
Correct.
So even though that percentage looks
Yep.
a little high, we're not looking to raise taxes.
Thank you. I was going to ask.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
I probably should have mentioned that. I'm a little tired, so I apologize. Yes, with combination of free cash and capital expenditures and things like that, the tax increase is projected to be, assuming valuations stay current and all of that, should be around 2.5%. So that was our goal that we had set for ourselves. So that's how we arrived at that number. I apologize.
And there's still some fluctuation potentially in the revenues yet.
Yes.
Yep.
New growth may increase
Right.
or decrease based on what our projection is. We used a conservative estimate that Barbara had provided us. Valuations obviously can go one way or the other depending on things. So again, as of today, based on current town valuations and levies, that's what it would be. That's what our projection would be. Just under a tax rate of just under $18, 17 and high change.
Sweet.
So, well, she's having trouble. Essentially, I would like to wait for you to have we in front of you, be easier, that's all.
Okay, sure.
Some of the things that
Where is
she went to her office, I think, to use her printer. Thank you, Lisa. There were a couple of things that we wanted to get your opinion on.
Do you need me for this?
No.
Okay,
no.
okay, comments.
I got this, I think, for now. The highway surveyor position has been reworked in a new job description, and we just wanted to ask what you're calling it so that we can align with that. Have you developed a job title yet?
Highway superintendent.
Highway superintendent, okay. Okay, so we just want to make sure we're okay with it. But correct me if I'm wrong, the position is more than just highway, correct?
Yes, a lot more than just highway. It's taking kind of all the different things, all the different hats that Jim wears,
Right.
And combining them all into one sort of super position. So it involves cemeteries and maintaining the grounds, transfer station.
Right, okay.
And I'm more than happy to send all of you the updated final version of the job description that we came up with, if you just want to see what's
Eric wants to apply for the
included.
job, I don't know.
Just a moment.
Highway superintendent.
Highway superintendent.
That fall in your skill set?
I don't think so.
You're willing to learn, though. Okay, so thank you for that. So as part of that, and to continue some of the work that we had done last year, we were trying to break out the labor lines from the expenses for the different departments. We think it's good for the town to see what where the expenses are going. So we attempted to do that with a couple of the lines in the Public Works section of the budget, the 300s. Thank you, Barbara.
Want me to give them to the board?
Oh, sure. I thought they already had one, sorry. I'm lost, I'm sorry. So continuing along that...
Thank you.
Continuing along those lines, we created a couple of new lines in those 300s. You'll see them indicated. One of them is for cemetery labor. The second is Parks Department labor. Last year, we broke out the highway labor and other departments. We had broken out the labor lines. So this year, we refined it a little bit for the Public Works to try and capture the labor lines for those two other departments. The projected totals that you see there are based on year-to-date information, prorated out over a 12-month period as provided by the accountant. So that's how we arrived at those numbers. And then, of course, we backed it out of the subsequent lines on the existing proposal. I apologize, I'll start at the top and I'll go back down, so I apologize for jumping ahead here. So the other added line that we had was line 243 is a new line to the budget for town administrator expenses, which we had neglected to add last year. And as you know, we had incurred some expenses there, so we're accounting for that now in the budget. And the amount there was submitted by Liz as a request. Another change in the fire section, which is the 500 lines, we added a line 508, again for medical supplies, breaking that out from the overall fire EMS services. Our thought process is that as EMS is the overriding number of calls, represents the overriding number of calls, that particular expense line seems to be pretty volatile, so we wanted to establish some history there. So we tried to break out that expense, and so that going forward we'll have some history and some tracking for that particular line, because it does seem to be something that is going to only increase as the number of runs increase and as the cost of those supplies increases as well. So that line was broken out of the overall 505 EMS services line. And again, the current proposed number of $15,000 is based on actual year-to-date expenses plus a cushion for next year. Their current year-to-date was about $10,000 for approximately 3/4 of this year. So we prorated that out and added another couple of $1,000s for that. Another added line to the 500s is the $50,000 that represents Plympton's portion of the emergency dispatch service. So that's a new line, new budget line, and that was requested by both the fire chief and police chief as a shared expense. So that is new this year. And then, of course, the bottom line to the budget. The police station debt is new this year, obviously. So those are the only changes as far as additions to the budget lines this year. Any questions on any of those? Before I go back, we'll talk individual lines if you want.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay. So, again, going back to the top section, which is the insurance premiums, pension, that sort of thing, we recommended the amount as presented to us. The major difference you'll notice is that the county pension number has decreased 3.6%. That's based on the actual bill that we received from the county just a couple of weeks ago. So that's an accurate number. Some of the others are estimates. Group health and such is still an estimate at this point.
It's a big chunk of our budget, that.
Yeah, it is. It is. The second section, the 100s, the government, the major difference, and this will, the major difference is a recommended amount for the Council on Aging Director. There were two requests from the Council on Aging. One was for the director's stipend itself. The other was for the support staff, the driver for the Council on Aging, and I guess they have a receptionist as well. They had requested an increase both for the driver, increase in number of hours per week, and also the cost of living and the merit increase as part of the salary. We did recommend that those be approved as they were presented. The other part of the request was the director's stipend to be doubled from what it was currently. As you know, Wage and Personnel did approve that increase to the salary range. We felt, because the support staff was already being increased 35%, that we would perhaps split the difference on the director's stipend itself. So that's how we arrived at the $7,500 as opposed to the $10,400 that was requested. Again, that's our recommendation. You certainly are free to ignore that if you wish. Everything else in that section is as presented to us by the boards and committees. Moving down, the assessors, their section, the difference in what was presented to us from what was recommended, which is approximately $6,000, the difference in that is represented in the support staff. We took a general approach this year after consulting with the administrator that we would hold staffing for all departments at current levels until Liz can get a handle on personnel and the staffing levels at all of the departments. We felt it was prudent to kind of hold the line, with the exception of, obviously, the cost of living increases. Those were allowed. But where there were requests for a department to add hours, we thought that it would be a good idea to hold a year on that until we can get a better handle on things, until Liz can get a better handle on the size of the departments, what the requirements are, what the needs are for those departments. So that's what's represented here. They had requested additional hours, and we decided to keep them at their current hours, and that's a theme that will play out a couple of more times.
Was it in here, is anybody receiving more than the 2.5 plus the 2%?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, as you go, point them out?
Absolutely. Well, let's just assume everybody is, unless I say otherwise.
No, he said anyone receiving.
Oh, more, I'm sorry, I apologize. So yes, 2.5 plus 2%.
For the most part.
For the most part. Everybody's getting 2.5 plus 2.
But is anybody getting 5,
No.
6?
They can't.
No.
Okay.
Unless it's
It was requested, but we did not.
correct.
We did not approve that.
Okay.
It's capped based on the wage and personnel bylaw, the way it's written. They'll get the cost of living adjustment as voted by wage and personnel, which this year was the 2.5. And then there's also a section in there that talks about how, if recommended by an individual department head or wage and personnel, somebody will be eligible to receive up to a 2% merit increase.
So let me
in
ask it a
addition.
different way. Is anybody changing their position so that they capture more than the
No.
4.5? Okay.
No.
No.
Okay.
You mean similar to what happened last year with the highway being reclassified, some of those positions?
Yeah.
Is that where you're going? No.
Yeah.
None of that happened this year.
Okay.
Nate, so did you just say that nobody was changing hours? You were keeping everybody at the same hours that they currently are for next year?
In general, with the exception of the driver for the Council on Aging.
Okay. Well, actually, it's the clerk from the Council on Aging that goes from 25 to 30 hours. That's how she's got it written up, as the clerk.
He's
that the clerk?
classified as a clerk, but he's the
Oh,
driver.
so he's actually the driver?
He's the driver.
Okay, all right, okay.
He's the driver.
Okay.
But in addition to that, they also have a receptionist, that there's a matching grant that they
Right.
have, so there's $2,400 of that request
Okay.
represents that portion of it. If we fund it for $2,400, they get an additional grant to match it, and that pays for their receptionist, I
Perfect.
think. Is that correct?
Okay.
The concern is that these grants often tie you in,
Right.
and all of a sudden, we're now, paying the full amount. And I'm concerned about that, because we've now added 2 people to the Council on Aging, where when Chris Moreno was here, we had 1. So we're now up to from 1 to 3.
That is
So I
correct.
just think we
And
need
if,
to...
right, if we don't get the grant, we won't be able to fund the positions.
And again, that sort of drove our thinking on the hours, because once you approve them, you can't take them back, or it's very difficult to, so we didn't want to.
Okay. Well, thank you, I didn't realize that the clerk was a driver, and so that
The
makes
position
perfect
in
sense now.
wage and personnel, it slots as a clerk, a senior clerk
Okay.
level.
Gotcha.
But he's the driver.
Perfect.
So that was the assessor line. We were talking about the 160s, 170s. So that, again, so for example, and these are just numbers, it's not actual numbers for the assessors. If someone was working 20 hours a week and they were requested to go to 24, we kept them at 20 for this year, but allowed the 4.5% increase, or 2.5%, as the case may be.
Were most of these increases requests for increase in hours? The salary, like the assistant assessor?
There were,
More hours?
the assistant assessor was, they wanted to increase 25%
Okay.
hours. And we did not feel that they justified the increase
Okay.
well enough to satisfy us, as far as what the need was.
Okay.
The legal things we have going on with the assessors, that's all going to show up in legal?
Yes.
Okay.
The town clerk section, the 180s, is recommended as presented. The large increase, as you'll notice, is due to elections. That's, as she explained, that there's a huge increase due to the early voting requirements that the state has put on us now. So the fact that she has to be open to service early voting is in the number of elections that we have this coming year as well. So that's why it's such a sizable jump there.
Unfunded mandates, gotta love it.
The next section, accountant and treasurer section, is recommended as presented to us. Selectmen is recommended as presented, with the exception of...
Custodial.
Yes, yes. So the custodian is an example where we approved the added hours increase because he's taking on an additional building.
Right.
However, there was also a slight increase of 20 hours requested for sort of unforeseen circumstances, emergencies. Our feeling was there's already an increase of 6 hours a
Where
week.
is the custodian?
258.
Line 258.
Oh, okay.
Where there was already an increase of 6 hours a week, we thought that that could absorb, even though it's small potatoes, it's $300.
Okay.
We just sort of thought it was the principle of the thing, kind of, so.
Makes sense.
So that's the only difference there. Board of Health is as presented to us. Highway, I think we already discussed. It's essentially level with this current year. The primary difference is the difference in the highway superintendent position. You know, the three positions rolled into one. We are budgeting the midpoint of the salary range, because obviously you haven't hired anyone yet, so we don't know what that salary is going to be. So for budget purposes, we went with the midpoint of the salary range, which happens to be a little bit less than what the current incumbent is making for the three roles that he currently serves. So that's why there's a slight decrease there, even though, you know, everybody's getting their wage increases. Animal inspector is as presented to us. Building inspector, again, the only difference from what was presented to us is the administrative assistant. They had requested another couple of hours a week, and we kept them at the current level, especially recognizing that we had, I think, we'd given a pretty substantial increase last year to that role.
Though she took on a lot.
Yeah, and she was servicing more departments, I understand, but we also did add, we added 3 or 4 additional hours over and above. Yeah.
Okay.
Fire, we did our best with what we could. You know, we had the submission from before. We put, again, for the salary number, we put in a number based on what the current position was funded at, plus 4%. And then we did add that medical supply line.
Is that number, that was one question that I thought we should just get your input from, at least, that salary. Does that salary look like an okay number for us to be budgeting?
It's, from my perspective, you know, with these fire committees that we've established now, we have a lot of different directions we can go. So I would tend to leave it where you have it, not knowing where we're going to end up. Yeah.
Right, well, that's why I said, we did the best we could, not knowing what the future is going to hold. We put a number in there, thinking that we'll try to stick with it.
Yeah.
And if not,
we'll deal with it next year.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
You may notice that line 515 is approximately half of what the request was. The reason for that is when that line was submitted as a budget request, it also contained supplies. Medical supplies were requested twice.
Yeah. So
we backed it out of both locations and added it to its own line there at 508. So that's where that discrepancy comes in.
Okay.
Police department was recommended as requested. Veterans recommended as requested. The only difference, major difference, is less veterans to serve, so there is a $10,000 decrease this year. Library, recommended as submitted. There is an increase of 1 hour per week for the library circulation clerk there. They wanted to fund a new program. It escapes me what it is at the moment, but there was a new program they wanted to do for 1 hour a week, and so we did. School, elementary schools, we changed the request for the vocational line. The request originally came in at $145,000. As you know, they have an April 1st enrollment deadline for students, prospective students for the vocational schools. That has come and gone now, so we got an update from the superintendent and from the budget director, and their new best guess is 105 to 110, so we budgeted 120. We discussed that with Jason earlier this evening, and he was fine with that, and he said he's willing to help. Ask him yourself. So
I said I'd be more than willing to take the floor at town meeting and explain the discrepancy between the numbers that we provided. We voted at our last meeting, which was the only meeting we had before the timeline set up by the town to give you our budget for town meeting. But with the April 1st deadline and Nate's understanding of the numbers, I'd be more than happy to stand up at town meeting. I don't know exactly what mechanism we have to go through to accept your number over what we propose.
That's probably a question for...
But John and I would be more than happy to stand up and support the number that FinCom has come up with.
I have a question on the elementary school.
Sure.
The 4.9, how much of that is due to, as I understand it, our percentage of the share of the total has changed, or is that nothing to do with the regional?
That's
That's
regional.
regional,
That's
that's the next
regional.
one.
Yeah, that's next.
So 4.9, is there something in there that's driving that?
Labor,
It's all labor?
mostly, right?
Was there a big jump in textbooks for the elementary?
It's like $13,000 was textbooks, but it's not, it's salary, but there's also an increase in developmental costs for salary. So as new teachers come on board, they're required to get their master's degree within 10 years, is that right?
It's 5 years, and they have one chance of getting a 5-year extension on their license. So yes, part of what you said earlier, John, is happening to us at the schools. A lot of the budgets that we used to count on from grants funded from the state and the federal government are dwindling. And a lot of the aid that we used to receive from the federal government for teacher professional development is no longer there. So we need to fund this to maintain our teacher's license and maintain our school's status. We get a report card as a school every single year, according to No Child Left Behind legislation at the federal level. And this is one of the requirements. So we did have to bump up the PD level for our teachers academic.
That report card that you refer to, is that a large document, or is it a one-pager, or how is it work?
There's a simple form that's about 3 pages long, and then there's a more in-depth form as well.
Okay. Be interested in seeing that.
You'd be a proud parent, John.
I am a proud parent of grandsons.
I think wasn't the salary line about a 4% contracted raise?
Yeah, it was right under 4%.
Yeah.
When did your negotiations come up again?
We just negotiated.
In about a year and a half, we
Okay.
probably enter back in. I know it seems like we just finished a 3-year cycle.
Yeah, I didn't think we negotiated that high of a rate, but, okay.
It's the steps, I think.
Yeah, well, I know we evened out the steps, because some of the steps were kind of crazy, but I don't think they got a large raise per se, but we did level out the steps.
Well, we also had a year without any retirements, moving from last year to this year, so there's no attrition taken into account in hiring at the lower level. So some years you see that raise go up by that much.
So the regional is where your concern came in, John. The actual budget increase from last year was 2.57%. But because our enrollment has increased at the regional level, our percentage actually went up 1%.
Okay, so that's
why our increase is higher at 6.7%. The actual budget that they developed was closer to 2.7.
Okay.
So, nothing we can do about the enrollments.
Yeah.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But we did ask them to try to stick to a 2.5% because that's what we were trying to hold all of our departments to, and they came back, pretty close to that. So we were comfortable with the number that came back. And then lastly, maybe not lastly, the reserve fund, we decided this year to index it to the overall number, thinking that going forward, it would be prudent to have a number that wouldn't change. So the number that you see there, the $80,000 number, it's an increase of $20,000 in the reserve, but it represents approximately 0.75% of the overall number. So going forward, we're going to keep using that number. So as the total budget number increases, you'll see a slight increase in the reserve to match, thinking that it's kind of the way everybody else does budgets. You withhold a certain percentage for overages.
I think it's wise.
So we're trying to match that for the town.
I think it's a great idea.
And frankly, we arrived at that number because it's kind of where we were, so we just went with it. And at least the last 3 or 4 years that I've been on the committee, we haven't come close to exhausting the reserve, but apparently in the past there have been instances where it's come close. So Barbara was in favor of this as well, to give a little bit more cushion, especially in the year where, you know, we don't know what the fire budget's going to look like, for example.
For sure.
Based on changes and some other things going on. So we thought that was a reasonable increase for the reserve. The other things are what they are, you know. So again, our total number that you see is the $10,903,045 as we just described.
When will the Dennett be paid off?
Questions?
I don't know the date.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I can check with Colleen or Barbara.
Could you?
Yeah, Barbara, I think it's only a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't think it's that far off.
It's not.
Because we were thinking about paying it off last year instead of doing something else, but we ended
A
up...
couple of years ago, we paid off the roof,
Right.
was it, or something for you?
Right.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, it'd be good to know what we've got
I
left
can
on
find that out
Okay,
tomorrow.
perfect.
So the budget is actually Article 4 on the warrant, so I don't know if you're ready to vote that one. I'm just trying to kind of go down and tick them off.
Okay.
I don't know, too, also, if you want our recommendation on any of the
Yes.
warrant articles.
Yo,
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Do you guys want to do that now, or are you comfortable?
We have voted.
We're ready to go.
so it's up you
All right, well
guys.
then...
Oh, let's
then
go
do
through
it.
all of them then.
Okay, do you guys have a copy of the warrant?
Do you
as
need
it stands?
extras?
If you have.
If you've got
I
it.
have a bunch. Just forgive where it says in black and white, BOS, recommended by BOS 3030. On my copy, it's highlighted. I have to physically go in and edit where they voted.
And we haven't voted yet.
Yeah, you haven't, they haven't voted yet. They're just
Yeah,
not color copies.
Sure.
So the yellow didn't come out on those.
So give one to the press.
All right, so why don't we just start with the top? Article 1 is to hear the report, so there's no recommendation there. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to authorize the town treasurer to enter into compensating balance agreements for FY 2019. Do you guys, do you make a recommendation on that one, or no? No?
That's just sort of a
All right, so I'll
formality.
make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend Article 2 on the annual town meeting.
As written,
warrant.
second.
As written? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, Article 3, to see if the town will vote to amend the wage and personnel classification plan effective July 1st, 2018.
Did you have any issues with the wage and personnel as laid out here?
There have been no changes from what was discussed at Wage and Personnel a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
No, we did not.
So do you guys make a recommendation on this or no? No? No. Okay.
think we do,
I'll
yeah.
make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend Article 3 as written for the annual town meeting.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, Article,
For ease of recording, I'm going to let you make the motion.
all right, perfect.
Second.
All right, Article 4, to see if the town will fix compensation of elected officials and to see what sums of money the town will raise and appropriate, including appropriations. Do you guys
It is,
vote on that?
it's the
We did.
budget.
Oh, you don't do anything until the budget, okay.
So that is the budget, and you've okayed it?
That's the budget we voted to,
Okay.
present it to you this evening for the
Okay.
number that we just gave you. So if
Okay.
you're comfortable with that. then-
Okay.
I think so.
All right, I'll make a motion that we recommend Article 4 as submitted by the Finance Committee for the annual town meeting.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Article 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds in the treasury the sum of $32,000 to conduct financial audits for fiscal year 2019 or take any other action relative thereto.
We voted, we approved that.
You approved it? All right. I'll make a motion that the selectmen recommend Article 5 for the annual town meeting as written.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Article 6, to see if the town will vote to accept and expend such sums of money allotted or to be allotted to the town from the Commonwealth of Mass under the provision of MGL Chapter 90. This is the Chapter 90 money. We do not.
We don't do that.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion that the selectmen recommend Article 6 as written at the
Second.
town meeting. All in favor? Aye. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $250,000 for road construction and resurfacing, including payment of costs incidental or relative thereto.
You were okay with that?
Okay. All right.
So we spoke last week about checking on the funding source. Anything come from?
Well, Barbara's got a whole sheet that she'll...
Barbara has the sheet.
So we didn't take that money from the capital.
We did not take it from capital because we wanted to give capital a year to breathe after
terrific.
last year.
Okay. Yeah, we were able to fund it.
So we're able to
Free
fund that
cash.
with free cash and
So we'll amend
available
that on
sources.
town meeting floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
she'll just,
Yeah,
She
we'll-
And she'll have it
hands
all.
Through the motion. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make a motion that the selectmen recommend Article 7 as written for
Second.
town meeting.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, Article 8, to see if the town will vote to appropriate or reserve from the community preservation annual revenue. So this is just a housekeeping article.
Right.
You guys don't?
Nope.
Okay. All right, and this has been recommended by the Community Preservation Committee.
Right.
All right, so I'll make a motion that the selectmen recommend Article 8 as written.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer $87,500, of which $11,000 will come first from the historic resources reserve, and then $76,500 from the budgeted reserve of the Community Preservation Fund to be used by the Board of Selectmen. This is for the old townhouse
Yep.
renovation
Yeah. And-
project. And this article was submitted by the Community Preservation Committee.
No, it was actually by us.
No, Mark sent it on behalf of CPC. We can change that, though, if you want it to be.
The Board of Selectmen were the ones...
Board of Selectmen are the,
Keeper.
will be the overseer of the project, but I think it's a CPC article.
It's just sponsorship,
Well,
that
you-
makes sense.
Right, you voted to support the project.
Yep, yep,
And you're the overseers of the funds.
yep.
Okay. You okay with that?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so... I'll
Though,
make-
I mean, the way it'll work at town meeting, of course, is CPC recommends the project, but then the applicant is the one that is the first one to argue in favor of.
So you're
town
gonna
meeting
speak
floor.
on it?
We'll see.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'll make a motion that selectmen recommend Article 9.
I'll introduce them if people don't know who.
Okay, as written. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, Article 10, to see if the town will vote to approve $20,000 each as a spending limit for fiscal 2019 for the Recreation Commission. This is just a revolving account we do every year.
It's a little different this year in that we're going with the new legislature from the state.
Having to revote
Right.
every year.
So once we've done this year, after that, it'll just be in place.
Okay, so the money was taken from May 7th, 2017 town meeting, so last year's town meeting?
Mhm.
So that's the way it's supposed to be written? Okay. Okay, and you guys don't recommend
No.
these either? Okay, all right, I'll make a motion that the selectmen recommend Article 10 as written.
Second?
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of $2,000 for the purpose of preparing fiscal 2019 interim year real property valuation. So this is by the Board of Assessors, they're the sponsor of the article. All right, I'll make a motion, the selectmen recommend Article 11 as written.
Did you...
Yeah, we were good with
Yeah.
that, too.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $2,500 for the purpose of preparing the fiscal 2022 centennial real property valuation of the town, and the Board of Assessors is, again, the sponsor of the article. Did you guys vote to support this?
The real property, yes, that.
I'm sorry, yes, we
Article
did.
12?
I apologize,
Okay.
yes,
All
we
right.
did.
I'll make a motion, the selectmen recommend Article 12 as written.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of $1,500 for the purpose of hiring a consultant for title and map research of owner and location of unknown parcels. This is a Board of Assessors article. Are you guys recommending this one?
We are not recommending this.
Okay.
I'm thinking.
Would you like us to speak to it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
We are not disputing the validity of the request. We are not disputing the value to the town. We are not disputing the candidate. We feel that it sets a dangerous precedent that we do not wish to set by someone who is a volunteer saying that they will choose not to act on the town's behalf unless they get paid. So again, and we also feel that if it was truly a consultant request, that there's a process for hiring a consultant that is not being followed here. So they're not putting the request out to bid, they're not submitting proposals from others. They are basically approaching one individual who, again, we are not disputing the talents or abilities of that individual, but it's a done deal in advance that they're asking us to fund, and we feel that that sets a very dangerous precedent for the town.
If they would have put it in a budget, in
We would
their
not have
budget,
approved it.
you wouldn't have approved it.
They did put it
there.
in the budget originally.
And you
And
denied it.
we suggested that it was an inappropriate request.
Okay, so then they did a warrant article.
Correct.
Okay.
I feel a little bit like we're shooting ourselves in the foot here.
Again, we're not disputing that. We're not disputing that it's perhaps penny wise and pound foolish. We just feel that there are many people who contribute their talents to this town who are not compensated, and we don't feel that we should be setting a precedent in this case.
And again, you guys are free to vote how you want. And
Sure. Right,
on the
correct.
floor,
That's
vote by the
our
town.
opinion.
That's just our
I
recommendation.
do think we need to take this, though, as a issue going forward, because Nate's right, you know, we need a process so it's not, doesn't feel like it's a done deal beforehand.
We do have a hiring policy that we've adopted, don't we?
We do. So I have kind of a mixed view on this, but after hearing
May I
Nate's...
speak to that?
Sure.
There was a name attached to the request, so it's clearly a done deal.
Okay.
See, I wasn't aware of that aspect of it. So initially what happened, they included it in their budget, and it was almost like they were trying to create a new position, hire a new employee, just through their budget, which you can't do. It would go through wage and personnel and everything. So after conferring with Nate and FinCom, and we also talked to wage and personnel and with Barbara, we said, you know, no, this isn't acceptable. It's not a request that FinCom can reasonably act on. Then they went ahead and came forward with this. And the version that I was provided with, it did not have that individual's name attached to it. And it was explained to me by some of the personnel in that office that it was, well, you know, it keeps our options open. Maybe some will go to that particular individual, and maybe some will be used down the line if we ever needed legal services or that kind of consult. So taking that at face value, when I was with FinCom earlier, I said, oh, you know, I don't have a problem with the $1,500, but if it's already a done deal, that changes my thoughts a little bit. It kind of goes back to what I was initially concerned about, that it does set a bad precedent if all of a sudden volunteers are going to say, oh, well, wait a minute, now I want to be paid. I think initially, weren't they looking for funding at one point to compensate for work already done? Or that may not have gone to you. That did come forward.
Yeah, that's not the way it was presented. I believe this individual has done the, and I don't know what it's called, but the work, the senior work off some of your tax. He's been
That's
doing
correct.
that.
That's how it started.
Yeah, that's how it's been handled previously, and I don't know if he's no longer eligible for that.
That's what's happened.
Okay.
He's reached his limit.
So they're looking to.
For other ways to compensate.
You know, the thing that, you take the fire study, and we went out for a consultant, and we hired one. The process, what they want to get done is going to bring more revenue into the town than the $1,500. So I think...
And again, we don't dispute that.
I don't, yeah, I know. And I guess I'm going to vote for it.
I hear all the concerns. I'm going to vote for it too, just because it is important, and actually for sums under $10,000 as far as procurement goes.
You don't have to go out to bid for it. It's best practices.
It's just best business practice, so we're totally within the realm of acceptable on doing that. I do hear FinCom's concern, and I'm glad you raised the issue, because as Liz takes over more, I mean, that'll be one more piece, but this is probably important as we move forward on our land use, so I'm also going to go for it.
All right, I'm not. So, so Article 13, to vote to see if the Selectmen will recommend Article 13 as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Aye. So 2-1.
2-1.
And will it be recorded that FinCom voted that, did not approve that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
It will. I'm using the template that was provided to me that I guess was used last year, that the former town coordinator had on the computer. Normally...
I think that's me.
I believe we totally redid it so that there weren't inserted graphs and charts and...
Oh, no, I didn't use that.
Oh, okay.
No, this is what I'm going by, but there's only a spot on all of these for whether or not it was recommended by Board of Selectmen, and maybe in the ones that FinCom voted, just warrants that I've seen from other places that I've been affiliated with have a spot where FinCom votes so that the public will know how you voted.
Right.
Each one had a recommendation.
Right.
So we just got to insert
final
it.
version it didn't, but I can go in.
in.
Oh, that must have been a lot of work.
Susan did all
Are you going to prepare the whole, like you'll have it ready?
I was just going to finalize the whole thing and just send it to you ready for print.
Oh, that's good.
So I'll go back. I'll confirm with you just to make sure that I've properly made note of all your votes, and where you voted, I'll add something that says, you know, recommended by Finance Committee,
Just take
you know,
last year's-
5-0 or not recommended.
Now, was it a 0-5 vote?
Yes.
Steve, are you 0-5, are we good?
Yeah.
Okay.
0-5.
Okay.
So the way you'll do it is, for the ones that FinCom voted on, you'll put it in. If there's no vote,
If
you'll
they
just
didn't
leave
vote,
that
I'm not
out.
going to put anything about FinCom.
Okay.
There's no money there, we don't...
Okay.
Right.
So we already did Article 14, we did Article 15.
I assume you didn't,
Article 16?
Not yet.
Okay. So Article 16.
you didn't vote on 14 or 15, right?
No.
Is the temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana. So I'll make a motion, the Selectmen recommend Article 16 as written.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Article 17, to approve a zoning change from agricultural residential. Actually, will it say on these that planning board recommended it, or no?
Yes.
You really should.
It should, yeah.
It should, and so I'm happy to go back in and add those
Yeah, let's add
votes.
those, the planning board
It's just
votes
helpful,
on
I
those.
think, for
But
the
we wanna
average
know the
person who's
process.
attending the meeting
Right.
to understand that some of the boards that are more significant.
They
have
will-
These are required.
They'll also they'll be
They
the
have
first
to give
person to
a-
talk on the,
Correct, they're required to give a written and oral report at town meeting, so.
Okay, so I recommended the Article 16 as written. Do we have a second?
second, I
All
think
in
we did
favor?
that, didn't we?
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
17?
17, all right, to approve the zoning change from agricultural residential to light manufacturing on land of Michael J. Carey trustee being Lot 4-1-22 at number 40 County Road. This is a citizen's petition, so it has to be voted as submitted. And
Planning board did not vote favorably
okay,
They
on
did
this
not.
one, no.
no, they voted against it.
And I checked with Deb, and I actually asked her if any abutters had come in with concerns, and one abutter had come in who appreciates the present operation but was concerned about new owners. That is, if this were done, the zoning change goes with the property,
Sure.
not the owner.
Sure.
Right.
So that abutter did have concerns. Deb, and I hope, I think I am saying it the way she said it, but the planning board wondered if there might be some way that they could create a non-conforming use so that the use could continue as it presently is, but it wouldn't go forward when there was a property change.
It would be the zoning
Yeah, they
board
have to
that
go to
could do
ZBA.
that. They should go see the zoning
Right.
board.
So I would like to not vote on this right now until we have more information, because I don't feel comfortable that I have a clear enough idea about this. I mean, I was originally for this because it solved the problem, but it's spot zoning,
Right.
and we don't want to get into that. If planning board's not going to recommend it, I don't feel comfortable now.
Well-
And if we turn it down at town meeting, then we have the whole enforcement issue.
You could also essentially abstain from voting on it. I'm just wondering for the...
Petition, yeah.
Correct.
It's not a town.
Yeah, but we don't have to vote
article.
tonight. I mean, we got a little time. We can...
We're
We
closing
don't
in
have
2
a
weeks.
ton of time.
No,
On the
we
don't.
23rd,
Yeah,
you'll
so
be
we can vote
signing
next
the
week, or
warrant.
the week after.
Well, we can't vote next week because we're not meeting
You
next
don't
week.
meet. And then the 23rd, you were going to sign it that night.
So what would change that would make you feel like you had the information to vote on?
If the planning board came back and said there's an alternative way of dealing with this, much like Mark just outlined, then I would be against it. I would
Okay,
vote this down
so
and
you
go with the
need
alternative.
To get more information about if there is an alternative.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
If the use was in existence prior to the zoning being enacted, classifying it as agricultural residential, then it would be a pre-existing non-conforming use.
No, this happened after.
But it happened after,
Yeah, yes.
then that's problematic.
Yeah.
I don't know that there is honestly an alternative, because from what I understand of the zoning here, the town never passed the provision where the zoning board can grant use variances. And if it doesn't fall into pre-existing non-conforming, it's one of those legal gray areas.
This actually came before zoning board of appeals 9 to 12 months ago, and I think they took no action because the owner said they'd move forward with the citizen's petition. So I think there was a sense then that there might not be any other alternative, but I mean, this is the one of the whole set of articles that I'm really wrestling with, and I'm still not sure. I'm leaning against, just because planning board did as well. And, you know, how we vote is really just a recommendation. It's still going to be up to town meeting.
Yeah, but they take our word for a lot of things. And
Yeah. I'm okay wrestling with it a little bit more if we feel like we can make the
Well,
vote.
this would be
2
the
weeks.
only one we'd have left to vote on, is this, in 2 weeks. So why don't we do that?
Okay.
All right, so let's hold Article 17.
Because you could still by right sign the last page and take the vote on the 23rd, and then I can go back into this page and adjust the recommendation
The
vote.
23rd is, so that's all 2 weeks from tonight. Yeah,
Correct.
We can do all
Oh,
that.
yeah, we can absolutely get it done.
Yeah.
Okay, Article 18, to see if the town will raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of $13,000 to make the first payment on a police patrol vehicle on a lease-to-own replacement program. So did you guys submit? Okay. All right, I'll make a motion that the selectmen recommend Article 18 is written.
second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the total sum of $48,903.05 to pay the annual lease payment for the 2013 Fire Department pumper tanker, the 2008 smear pumper, and the 2008 GMC EMS vehicle as part of the lease purchase programs previously authorized. So it looks like we voted on this
We did,
already.
yeah.
It's just continuation of payments.
Correct. The only thought, some of those vehicles may have already be completed, and we're not sure.
Yeah, I think you should check with Barbara on those.
The number dropped pretty significantly. It was 104,000 last year, so now it's down to 48. So our guess is that at least one of those vehicles is paid off. So we
Barbara-
might want to amend.
Barbara set the number at the 48,903, but I can find out if it was specifically a vehicle being completed as far as the payments are concerned, or if it was just that the payment amounts were to go incrementally lower.
Somebody at some point was told that that was paid off.
I mean, I would think that both 2008 vehicles would be paid off at this point.
You would think so. It's
Right?
been,
I mean,
yeah.
You might hope.
especially.
I'll look into that, and if some of them are offline, I'll edit that.
So do we,
The amount, though,
recommend
is...
it,
The number's correct.
The number's
Okay.
We're not
correct.
disputing the number.
It's
We're
just the
We're
vehicle.
just saying, just for
Correct.
accuracy.
Clarification of the
Yeah,
vehicle.
Yeah, we should
exactly.
verify
Yeah.
that.
So,
Okay.
subject to amendment, let's approve it as
okay.
written.
subject to verification?
Yeah,
All right,
so-
so I'll make a motion, the selectmen recommend Article 19, subject to verification that these 3 vehicles are still, the 48,000 includes lease payments for all of these vehicles.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds or transfer from capital stabilization the sum of $31,000 to purchase and install a new phone system, including any necessary wiring for the Dennett School, or take any other action relative thereto.
Yeah, we were in favor of that.
Okay, I'll make a motion, the selectmen recommend Article 20 as submitted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 21, to see if the town will vote to amend the wage and personnel bylaw, Section 16, sick leave, by striking said section in its entirety and replacing it with the following text. So this is clarification of sick leave.
Did you vote on this?
We did not.
You did not.
This just goes, this was something that Barbara had been working with Wage and Personnel on for quite some time, even prior to my employment here. And it's to make it so that the hour ranges actually are in line with what hours people are working here in the building, so that you don't have somebody who's working, for example, 34 hours a week, but then their sick leave isn't amounting to a full day. It was just meant to kind of even out some of that, and make it up to date.
Yeah, we didn't think there was an immediate direct financial impact, so, and we didn't have a problem when she explained it to us. It certainly made sense to us, but we didn't think there was any reason for us to vote on it.
Okay. So this was submitted by Wage and Personnel. All right, are you okay with it?
Yep.
You too? Okay. All right, I'll make a motion, the selectmen recommend Article 21 as written.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Article 22, to see if the town will vote to amend the wage and personnel bylaw, Section 13, vacations, by striking said section in its entirety or replacing it with following text. So once again, this is a wage and personnel board article to clarify vacation, submitted by wage and personnel. You guys took no action on this one either.
Same reasoning.
Yep. Okay. All right. Are we all good on this? All right, I'll make a motion. We recommend Article 22 as written.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to amend the wage and personnel bylaw by establishing Section 21 hiring policy as follows. So this is the hiring policy that I think we all felt that the town needed to adopt. This was recommended or submitted by our wage and personnel board. So I'll make a motion, the selectmen recommend Article 23 as written.
Second?
All right, all in favor? Aye. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $55,000 for the purchase of a new MV1 handicap van for use by the Council on Aging, or take any other action relative thereto. What did you guys recommend?
We did not approve this.
Okay.
I think she was not withdrawing it, but she seemed okay, I thought, when she left here about passing over it for this year.
Our perception when she came in to make her presentation a couple weeks ago, that she just sort of wanted to get it out there in people's minds. She wasn't necessarily looking for it this year.
She did indicate that
what we heard too.
She thought she submitted it as well as a capital request.
She did.
Oh, all right.
She did, but if I remember correctly, it was for fiscal '20.
Okay,
that
would make sense. Okay.
All right, for next year.
Yes.
Okay. So,
do you want to vote no action,
or does she want to withdraw the article?
I can check with her. Why don't we? If you vote,
is she here? Is it too late? Because the warrant is
That's a
closed.
question that has come up in the past, and we haven't had answered, and I'd love for town council to just let us know.
We can find out. I already sent the draft warrant to council. So maybe you want to vote and say that if it's allowed, and if she's amenable, you'll allow her to withdraw, but otherwise maybe take a vote for no action.
Well, I wouldn't want to take no action. I think I'd want to not recommend it.
Right, like not favorable.
Okay.
So, will you check with town council, though?
I'll
If
check
we
with
can
council,
withdraw
and if
I
it
think
can
that
be
makes-
withdrawn, that's probably for the best,
That
so it
makes
doesn't confuse people or raise an issue whether it's
Yeah,
not.
if they get it in the mail and they get all bent out of shape before we get to town meeting, and we don't have to upset people, especially if we're going to pass over.
Okay.
But we will, if we do have to vote, we're voting no.
I would vote against it.
Okay.
So
All right.
0 to 3.
So I'll make a motion, the Board of Selectmen, or actually, all right, make a motion to the Board of Selectmen to recommend Article 24. All in favor?
Or to
All those
not
opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So we're not recommending. So that one is 0 to 3. All right, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $15,000 for the purchase of new personal protective equipment to replace aging PPE or take any other action relative thereto. This was submitted by the fire department. Do you guys have a recommendation on this?
Yes, we recommended this purchase.
Okay.
I think it's the second half of what we began last year.
I believe so.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion, the Selectmen recommend Article 25 as written.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, 26 is hopefully going to be our earth removal.
Here, I have this for you to read.
Yay, I've already read it like 3 times.
No, I mean, read it to the public. But
How many pages?
It's available
15
for
pages.
viewing at the Board of Selectmen's office during normal business hours.
And
There you
what
go.
we agreed was that we won't put it on the website until it's reviewed by council.
Okay,
So
so
that we
I'm just
don't
going to
have-
leave the placeholder,
Let's
but
leave
are
the
you
placeholder.
voting in favor of the article subject to revision by town council?
I think I am.
Yeah, I think so, unless they
So
come
maybe
back with
vote to
something
recommend
really
as
obnoxious.
amended, as may be amended by town council,
Okay,
is how that could be done.
okay. All right, I'll make a motion. The Selectmen recommend Article 26, the earth removal bylaw, as reviewed and
pending town council.
pending approval of town council. Yeah, when reviewed.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, Article 27, to see if the town will vote to adjourn this annual town meeting. Yay! All right.
Can I bring up one thing?
You got it.
We still have
tonight-
special town meeting.
Right, we still, but we don't have the full warrant for special
Oh,
town
okay.
meeting yet.
We usually at some point take a look at this and decide whether we want to change the order of these. And I don't know if we want earth removal at the very end or not. And I'm just bringing up that as a possibility. Some towns do this totally differently, and they just do the whole thing by lottery so that it can't be manipulated. I don't have any real opinion, I just want to make sure we at least talk about it.
So some of the budget ones, like Articles 1 through...
1 through 4 are always the
1
same.
through 5, Barbara and I had talked over, and the zoning articles cannot change because it's how the public hearings were advertised, so those numbers have to remain firm.
Okay.
Anything else, you would be able to adjust accordingly.
But it is the last article
And
that we're working on, and
Yep.
that's the order it came in.
Yep, and I think that's fine. I mean, it's just something that comes up all the time, that we put them on the order that comes in. Sometimes the town moderator, I think, has some discretion on whether...
No, the warrant article is
I didn't
strictly at the
do-
discretion of the Board of Selectmen.
I didn't do any of them specifically in the order that they came in, except that with the earth removal one, it was a placeholder, so I did end up sliding that one near the end, but
Well, actually, ours probably came in before the Council on Aging one did, the van.
the Council on Aging one, I inserted, there was
We
a
do a
reason for
disservice in a
that.
way, though. If we put this 15 pages somewhere in the middle, you're going to lose half a town meeting by the time we get to the end.
Eric made the motion, Steve.
And this isn't that big of a warrant. We should be able to get this done in one night.
Yes, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Work for you?
This is not that bad. I don't think there's a whole lot that's controversial
No,
here.
no.
There was one item that was just brought to my attention that I neglected to mention previously,
Okay.
but we've already voted on it. We thought it was, we took pity on the town moderator, and so we gave him a raise this year.
Oh, that was nice.
You did.
We did. Now that you're out of the role, we thought,
8 years and I never got a raise.
we did, we increased the stipend to $200.
Oh,
That was nice.
So,
I want to vote against that.
so just for clarity, we wanted to make sure we were on board with that. Thank you,
Okay.
Lisa.
Before Lisa runs out, years ago, I served with her. She was on, when I first was on Finance Committee, and it is a great loss that she's leaving.
Here, here.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You will be
I
sorely
am
missed.
sure this board is so appreciative of your years of service.
Absolutely.
It's actually been, I've actually enjoyed it, so.
You leave very big shoes to fill, that's for
So-
For
sure.
those hard years
Yes.
and the not so hard years.
And then, I'm sorry, my own, thank you, I completely, I'm not trying to step on that. My only other question is, when is the special warrant closing?
So I would like to have it closed maybe April 30th because, and that was something else I was going to email you about. Brian Wick wants, so Barbara has maintained that normally she didn't like the board to close it until like the first week in May, but that makes me
has to be early.
nervous.
It has, and even
has to get to
even
the
the date
printer
you
and
say,
back.
it won't get to the printer in time. to be
Okay, they
mailed.
waited last year for a while, but I was thinking that if they closed and voted and finalized it April 30th, or maybe the 23rd.
Why don't we go the 23rd?
Want to go the 23rd?
I actually think we did it a week earlier than that even.
I'd have to check
normally.
with Susan,
It
to be
wasn't,
honest.
last year, the annual town meeting was physically signed by the board on April 24th. So this year, we're planning to have them sign it on the 23rd.
Okay.
And then special town meeting was done, I believe, a week or two after that.
But town meeting is like the 12th or the 15th.
It's the 16th. I know, I'm not normally comfortable with stuff like that. I had to.
I just don't see how we'll get it printed, get it to the, because it goes through the prison and how
I
it'll be
think you need
printed
to
and brought
consider
back
the
to us and
23rd.
folded
Yeah, why don't we
and
just do it on
stamped.
the
Do the 23rd?
Right, let's just do it the 23rd.
I prefer more time. It's just the process is very new to me, and I got a lot of pushback when I wanted to close it even sooner. Because the annual town meeting warrant, we have a bylaw that mandates that it closes the last Monday in March. And I would have been fine to close all of it, but I was told under no uncertain circumstances that that wasn't happening,
Can
so.
you just relay? that
Yes, and we
you
can
wanna
plan, maybe we
close it
can
on the
close it on the
23rd?
23rd, and they could sign both.
We'll vote on our recommendations on the special on the 23rd. Will you guys be back on the 23rd?
We have already voted on the special, but I'll come back and represent the committee.
Okay.
If there's no other articles that come in between now and the 23rd, I'll come back and represent the committee, and
Okay.
these folks can have the day off.
Okay.
Is it problematic? I have that procurement class that goes on
On
the
when?
23rd.
No, it will be fine.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
I'll make sure that you have everything
Yeah,
ahead of
it'll be
time.
fine. Yeah, no worries.
Did you vote against any, or?
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
so that makes it easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All
right.
right.
But
So
I'll
we'll
come back and
wrap that
officially
up on the
represent the...
23rd as well.
So, and if something comes in, we'll have a brief meeting prior to that, and we can
Okay.
vote on it. But
Yeah, you may
Great.
just want to send a
all things
memo
being
out.
equal,
Did you have the draft one that I had sent? Is that what you voted on?
we have the things that Barbara has, so if...
Okay, there might be, did you have the school ones on there?
Yes.
Perfect, okay. Because
Yep.
she and I have been communicating, but I'm trying to make sure that,
If you want to send me what you have, I'll compare with what we voted.
that's what I'll
If
do.
there's any
And I'll also
discrepancies, we can-
send a draft of the annual with incorporating your votes, and you can correct me with anything that needs to be corrected, so
Great.
that the 23rd, they can sign, and
We'll be done with it.
That works.
Perfect.
Okay?
Great. Thank you so much
Thank you for your
coming
work.
in.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely for your work. All right, I don't think we've got anything left.
Good.
We've done everything. All right. You want to just skip the rants and raves for
Yeah,
time?
yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we adjourn. All in favor?
Second? Aye.
All right, so John seconded, and we're out of here.